Rolling.
You don't want anything to drink? Like water?
Should I have a drink? Do a thumbs up to the video if you think I should have a drink. Also do a thumbs up to the video if you think I shouldn't have a drink. And we'll tally it up in the end, see if I made the right choice. What should I have to drink? I've got some milk, but I don't have any cola. So I'm not gonna have any...
We won't have the traditional drink.
Yeah, I forgot to buy the Coke, bro.
Our Faroese audience is gonna be disappointed.
Yeah. So my name is David, and this is the Serious Comedians podcast. I have here with me my friend Luis Pellecer, and he has done some comedy with me also, and he's done a lot of different things, and he has lived in the Faroe Islands.
Yeah.
And he's not from the Faroe Islands, but he's lived there. And how about we start with that? So how long were you living in the Faroe Islands?
I was there for something like 8 to 9 years, something in between that.
And 8 to 9 years. And where are you from originally?
USA, Michigan in the north, and Miami.
Land of the free.
Yeah.
And how did you feel in the Faroes in terms of freedom compared to the US?
I mean, the freedom was very, very low, but healthcare was great.
In the Faroes, yeah?
No, I'm just kidding. It was...
This is a serious podcast.
Yeah. Let's get into some serious political matters.
Yeah, we're gonna try. Yeah, so the point of this podcast is comedians very rarely are serious. So on this podcast, I'm trying to have a serious conversation with comedians, and it might be the first serious conversation that the comedians ever had in their lives. So it can be a bit tough.
And I like barely qualify. Like I've only done open mic stand up, and one time as a guest for 5 minutes on the show. So. I definitely don't want to put out the image that I'm a comedian, but...
He's a comedian.
But
in my book...
Davir's very funny.
He's done comedy, aka a comedian.
I did do it once or twice.
And he's one of the most I almost said one of the most famous people.
I thought you were going to say that. I was like, famous for what?
No, he's not famous. Sorry. But
no.
One of the funniest people I've ever met in my life. So I'm really glad to have you on my podcast here today.
Being very kind, thank you.
And we met in the Faroe Islands. So I don't know if I've ever mentioned this, but I'm from the Faroe Islands, and one of our viewers might know where that is.
Yeah, maybe.
It's a small country north of Egypt.
If you haven't been there, check it out. North of Egypt.
North of Egypt, a little bit quite far north of Egypt.
A wee bit.
And you're from Michigan.
Yeah, I'm from Michigan, and I was at university, and I met a Faroese girl there. I didn't know she was Faroese. We were doing theater together, so we were both theater kids, and then we started hanging out, and it was only after a while that it came up in conversation that she wasn't from the US. And then I asked her where she was from, and she said she was Faroese, and I was like, you don't look very Egyptian. And I meant that 100% sincere, because I'd never heard of the Faroes or ever visited Europe or anything like that.
And she does not look Egyptian.
She does not look Egyptian. Very, very the opposite of what I would assume the average.
She looks un-Egyptian.
Very un-Egyptian. Almost anti-Egyptian. I don't
think that's a nice
term. That doesn't sound good.
No, she's not. No. We're not saying that his ex-girlfriend's anti-Egyptian.
Egypt, no. Egypt seems like a great place.
It's a pretty cool place.
Yeah, it seems nice. But yeah, then she educated me a little bit and told me about the Faroes. And then we graduated more or less around the same time, and then we decided to give things a try in the Faroes. And it was a wonderful experience. I'm really happy that I went. But it was full of very cringy, cultural shock moments, and I think as long as you've got the stomach to put up with some cringy awkwardness when you move to a new place, it's going to be fine, because there's no other way to really learn it. You can't just read about all the cultural, social dynamics that you're going to encounter. You just have to live them and make your peace with it, and that's fine.
You need a lot of humility when you move somewhere that's so different, because you just have to accept you're gonna not know how to do things or what is expected of you, and not how to say things and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember.
And it's a big change to go from Michigan to the Faroes.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time you came to the Faroes?
I do. I remember I posted on Facebook. I said, hey, I have a choice to make. It's going to cost me about $2,000 to either go to Europe for a week or I can fix my deck. So I had a house for a few years and it was a very old house and it needed some work. And it's really funny to look back at those comments because, Facebook pops up with memories every once in a while. Mm-hmm. And I looked at the comments and, how many people posted, forget Europe, invest in your house, fix the deck, it'll pay off in the end. Mm-hmm. And, there's some truth to that. I'm not saying that was necessarily bad advice, but wow, am I happy that I chose to go visit the Faroes and how that led
to this moment.
To this very moment right here on this podcast, which is now the highlight.
Yeah.
And you know what? Screw the deck. Here we are.
Screw that deck.
Screw that deck. I did fix it.
You would have had to screw it together, so.
Yeah, that's true. I did. I did.
Yeah, you chose another life than a deck. You didn't want a deck life.
No. I mean, it was a nice house. I missed the house.
So the $2,000. What you mean? Those were the flights?
Yeah, it was flights basically, flights and travel and
And what did you remember? What your then girlfriend had told you about the Faroes, or what did you expect? What did you been told?
I don't really remember her giving me much in terms of expectations on like culture.
Had you been in Europe before that? Mm-mm. So this was your first taste of Europe, was the Faroe Islands.
So I told my friends when I bought the tickets, I was like, because it's in the US, we've got movies about going to Europe. Like it's a big deal. It's like, oh my God, you've been to Europe?
Yeah, and that means London, Paris, Rome.
Yeah, so I was like, hey guys, I'm going to Europe. And my friends were like, whoa, where are you going? Paris? London? And I was like, no man, Faroe Islands.
Egypt.
Yeah. And they just thought I was joking. Like, oh, okay, so you're not really going anywhere. You're just messing around. I was like, no, it's Faroe Islands. And like, that's not a real place. And I had to look it up and like had to prove it. Mm-hmm. But yeah. That was my first time in Europe, was the Faroes. But
your first taste of Europe in the Faroes. And what was it? Do you remember the moment when you got to the Faroes?
Yeah.
First impressions, or what do you remember?
I mean, it was just fantastic. The nature is so wildly different from Michigan, where I'm from. Michigan's gorgeous, like forests and dunes, and we've got the Great Lakes. It's like 20% of the world's fresh water. They're huge. Mm-hmm. People think lakes, they think small, but these lakes are giant. Like it's
like oceans.
Yeah, they're like tiny oceans. And but still, to move to a place that's all fjords and ocean, and you can almost always see the ocean where you are. Mm-hmm. Almost nearly always see a mountain, and it's just so wildly different. And the scale when you live next to mountains, when you're in a fjord, I don't know, it's kind of a humbling experience, I think, because they're so grand.
You heard it here first, people. So he's from the US, went to the Faroes. They're so grand.
They're so grand. Yeah. I mean, we have mountains in the US too, but I never lived in a place with mountains.
Yeah, in the Faroes, it's very steep, so everything seems real big. Mm-hmm. You're looking up at mountains and cliffs and stuff.
Yeah, the scale, the background is always so big, and it kind of puts your sense of self, I think, into some kind of perspective, which I appreciated. I thought it was nice. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's gorgeous. I miss it. I lived there for a long time. The first couple of years were pretty rough, but once you start to settle in, once certain things start to make sense and you start making connections with people and your network grows, then, the sense of community that I eventually found in the Faroes was unlike anything I had ever felt in the US. And I think that's what really started to make it feel like home to me. Yeah. You just feel like, being a foreigner, it's not the same as being Faroese. There's always that side to it, but eventually you start to feel like you belong, and people know you and you know them. Yeah. And it's really nice.
And you really know a lot of people there. I think you know more people in the Faroes than I do.
You've been living abroad for a long time,
But you networked a lot, and you were doing a lot of different things. So you knew people in every place.
I did get to know quite a lot of people. That's true, and I think a lot of it had to do with the service industry management. And when you want to start planning events, because it's like
So what was your first job when you get to the Faroes?
I worked at Hotel Faroe.
Yeah.
Worked at a hotel, and I was
The biggest, fanciest hotel there is there.
I mean, at the time, at the time that might have been true.
Yeah.
In 2014.
Now there's more.
Yeah, now there's more. But I was like a bartender, waiter type thing, and yeah.
What did your family think about you being so far away from home in the Faroes?
I mean, it was really tough to say, goodbye to, mom and grandma and my brothers. But we have such a big family, and not necessarily is everybody living so close. It might take 40 minutes to drive to, an uncle's house, or an hour or more, depending. So it wasn't necessarily...
Did they understand where you were living? Did they know? Like, did they...
We had a going away party. It was a fun going away party. Very, very like Cuban style. We rented out a place, and then a bunch of different people made some food. My grandma made a lot of food. My mom made a lot of food. And, it's just got like arroz con frijoles and like the meat, and there's just plates. So everyone's just like chowing down, salsa and the merengue music in the background. And it was just like a really fun party. Everyone getting together, saying goodbyes, and I get to tell everybody that I'm gonna miss them and stuff. And I'm very happy to have had that moment. It's like a moment of closure for a chapter. Yeah. It was really cool.
Before your next chapter of your life?
Before the next chapter full of cringy cultural. I mean, eventually, it's just,
let's get into that. So now you got to tell us some stories.
Man, I mean, let's start with something very mild. Okay. So, in the U.S., we have a lot of big cities. My city wasn't giant. We had like 300,000 people in the greater area. But when you go out into town, when you go to party, and you're in your group of 5, 6, 7, 8 people, if someone goes missing, it's like everybody stop, time out, where'd they go? Let's find them. No man left behind. All right, hold on, I'll be right back. I'll go check this place. Okay, I'll go check that place. And you go and you find them. You're like, whew. All right, they're with us again. Now we can move on.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I went out with my ex and her friends in Tórshavn, which is a tiny place,
20,000 people.
Yeah, 20,000 people in the greater Tórshavn area.
Yeah.
That's Arger and Hoivik, also. But when I moved there, it was 15,000. A major population increase in a few years. But we went out and we went to like Esabar. I forgot, what was it called before Esabar?
Café Natur.
Yeah, we went to Café Natur. And one of the friends stayed, and the rest of us took off. And I was like, everybody wait! Because they're walking off, they're past Hafnia, they're on their way out. And I was like, wait up. And then my girlfriend at the time, she was like, what are you doing? And I was like, but we left so-and-so over at the bar. And she was like, that's fine. And I was like, but they'll be alone. That's like an error. They'll be, we can't, she's like, no one's alone in Tórshavn, ever.
Yeah.
If
you're in a bar in Tórshavn, there just by coincidence there will be other people there.
Yeah, there'll be other people
Yeah. So this person there was probably talking to some people they knew there.
And maybe they would meet up later, maybe they don't.
And if you go to the next place, that's 5 minutes walking. So if they want to catch up with you guys again, they just send you a message or call you. Where are you? Okay. Yeah. And then they come. Yeah. So that's really common in the Faroes.
Yeah. So that happened the first time, and that was also the night I learned of how common it is to ghost in the Faroes, just culturally. So you're out with friends, you don't feel like being there anymore, and you're just like, okay, and I'm out.
It's very common.
Yeah.
People, if they want to leave, and you might think that if you have to go do the whole song and dance about goodbye and see you later or something, then it kind of changes the atmosphere, and it becomes like a subject that now one person is leaving. Whereas if you just kind of disappear, you don't really notice until much later. Oh, they went home, huh? Okay.
I never really thought of it like that, but that makes a lot of sense. It's almost like doing a favor to the people that stay in a way.
The times that I do that, that's how I feel about it. Like I could announce to everybody I will be leaving, and that's kind of like
It's almost egotistical when you see it
change
through
the
this sort of
subject.
lens.
Whatever they're talking about, now we're going to talk about that I'm leaving. And
Yeah.
then there might be something, oh, do you really have to? Oh, can you stay 10 more minutes? Something, if you're lucky, if people want you to stay.
Yeah.
So the times when I do something like that, it's just like I'm really tired and I don't want to change the atmosphere that's going on there. I'm just going to go, and they will realize I left. And I care about them. It's not that I don't love them. I'll see them again later, the next day or whatever.
That's very true. Right at this moment is the first time I've ever thought of it like that. I don't know why, because there's so many things that we do just because we've always done them, and we don't question it or think of it.
Yeah, and I haven't thought about this before in this way either. But just when we're talking about this, that's what comes to my mind. Like,
maybe the size has a lot to do with it. I mean, obviously it does, but I think part of the reason perhaps that we do it so much, at least in my circle of friends back home, it's just like a matter of safety.
Yeah.
It's a big city. We have more crime in the U.S. than you guys have in the Faroe Islands. So it's like if someone's missing, it's comforting to know that they're missing on purpose.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's not that they are in a fight outside or something.
Yeah, exactly. Which it's very possible. So yeah, I can see that just the sheer size of the place is going to influence the sort of social culture in this way.
And I've vanished many a time, and I don't think anybody's ever thought something happened to me.
Yeah, because that would be weird, like to think that in the Faroes. It wouldn't make like statistical sense. It's not logical to assume that. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, so you had to get used to that.
I had to get used to that. I had to get used to like the level of drinking. So
that's Fridays and Saturday nights.
Fridays and Saturday nights, mostly. And, where in my circle of friends back home, we would go out all the time. Like Tuesdays was half off sushi and cocktails at this one restaurant. So Tuesdays after work, we go home, we change, shower up, whatever. And then we go meet and we have some cocktails, we have some food, have some laughs. We go to bed at a decent time. We go to work the next day. And we might have $2 shots on Thursdays and we go dance, and then Sunday is the karaoke night. So like all week long, there's no limitation to when you can go out or what's acceptable and what's not.
Yeah.
But in the Faroes, what I started to learn was like, it's weird if you go out to have any drinks, unless it's Friday or Saturday. Friday is still a little iffy, but Saturday was always like,
mainly.
And then when you do, you get wasted. Like out of your mind. Like the first time I went out, I remember seeing so many people barely able to walk.
Yeah.
And I would tell like my girlfriend at the time or the friends, I was like, hey, maybe we should help them. Like should we talk to them and see if they're okay? Maybe call them a cab or something. They were like, what the fuck are you talking about?
You'd be busy all night helping.
You'd be busy all night. But that was just normal level of intoxication. Whereas for us, and I was part of a party group. We would go out, we'd party, That level of drunkenness was beyond what we would consider socially acceptable. We would be concerned of a person that drunk, but that's just the norm. And that's because binge drinking is so ingrained.
Yeah.
And
alcohol. So in the bars and restaurants, the alcohol is so expensive that you want to drink as much of alcohol before you even get into the nightclub. If you were gonna have 3 drinks in a nightclub, that'd be a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so what most people do, as you know, pre-party at somebody's house, and then maybe at midnight you'd head out to a nightclub and bar, and by that point you're already wasted. Yeah. And so you might get 1 or 2 drinks at the nightclub or bar or whatever.
And I think this is really important, this thing you're talking about here, because in Iceland and in the Faroe Islands, we have Vínbúðin, we have Rusan, the government monopolies on alcohol sales. Yeah. And there are so many people that are convinced that it's a good thing for society to have this government control and to add these additional taxes, like arbitrary taxes. They're not taxes founded in any real thing. They're not like, well, the import cost. No, the import cost is already factored in to the price. But there's this extra just plain old alcohol tax put on top for no reason. And people think it's a good thing. It's going to discourage drinking. But what actually happens, how that plays out in reality, is that it incentivizes binge drinking. We're going to make alcohol so expensive that it will encourage you to get near blackout drunk
on the
before you
cheapest
go
stuff.
into town.
On the cheapest stuff.
On the cheapest stuff. So that you don't go into town and have to spend so much money. So we will structurally incentivize binge drinking. So they think it's helping society in some weird, sort of closed-minded way, but it's not. It's the opposite. And it's not just hurting binge drinking, it's hurting the economy in a big way. Because now the bars have to charge even more money for all those things. And they're going to have less customers because people aren't going out because it's so expensive. And that has a ripple effect throughout the rest of the economy in a big way. So we're hurting ourselves. We're hurting our kids. Like the teens that I've seen here in Iceland and the Faroes, I'm surprised alcohol poisoning isn't just like a weekly thing.
Well, there is a trend that young people are drinking less, like compared to when I was a teenager. Teenagers today are drinking a lot less than back then. So there's a trend where young people are less interested in drinking a lot of alcohol, which is fortunate. But what you're saying about the binge drinking thing is totally true.
I mean,
totally true.
And I can see what you're saying. Like I could even see it in the Faroes. I was only living there for, like I said, about 9 years. But from when I arrived to when I left, there was a shift in like the socially acceptable level of drunkenness. Like people were starting to tone it down a little bit. And I've heard from other people that even that is a wild difference from what Tórshavn was like, for example, back 30 years ago or 40 years ago.
So let me tell you one funny thing. So the alcohol stores in the Faroes opened in the early 90s, I think 92.
Oh, okay.
So when my parents were young, the way that it worked is that you would order alcohol, and then there was no bars, so they would have what you call rolling bars. So whoever had a car, they would drive you around, and then the people in the car would be drinking and partying. In the trunk of the car, they would have the beer and the alcohol and stuff like that. So they had rolling bars. And very often the drivers themselves were also drinking, so death traps.
Yeah.
So that's what
in fjords, like a tiny ass. The roads aren't even so wide
foggy
in other places.
And steep,
rainy
and steep. Sheep jumping out on the road in front of you.
Yeah.
So that my parents grew up with that kind of drinking culture. Yeah. And that was very much also binge drinking. So. And one big difference between the alcohol stores in Iceland and the Faroes is that in the Faroes, the profits from the alcohol stores goes to funding alcohol treatment.
Okay.
Treating alcoholics. In Iceland, it does not. In Iceland, the profit from the alcohol stores goes directly to the government, so not necessarily towards.
It gets dispersed in many ways, probably.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
But so to me, in the Faroes, that makes a lot of sense. If you're going to have people drinking, you might want to use the profits from that to treat.
Well, it's supposed to be not for profit, right? Like Rusland's not supposed to turn a profit.
Right. Yeah, it's not a profit incentivized, but the money they make goes into funding the.
I think they got in some trouble, or not in trouble, but they got some heat one of the years. Because they reported a profit, and people were like, "You fucking better not."
Yeah. You know, and I think it's because it's supposed to go into treating, into the treatment centers, and not into not into a bank account with money. You know.
And I know that no matter where you are in the world, there's going to be a percentage of people that are predisposed genetically to be more likely to become alcoholics. Like some people are just more susceptible to it, like many other things in the world, substances. But I don't think we're doing ourselves any favors by with this structural incentive to binge drink. If instead we had a more mindful, more relaxed, honest culture about drinking that included moderation, we would be so much better off. Yeah, and
I wonder what it would be like if there was that kind of moderation.
All you got to do is look at a lot of other cities, see how they're doing. I mean, I know Danes tend to drink more than maybe where I'm from.
Yeah.
Again, let me rephrase that. I don't know that, but I've heard that per capita Danes drink at a higher level, for example, than...
Yeah, the drinking age in Denmark is 16, and they have alcohol in all the grocery stores and everything like that. So that's very unique for the Nordic countries.
Yeah, but if you were to compare, it would be really interesting to compare, I think, like the service industry of a village in Denmark of 25 to 30, 40,000. See how the service industry does compared to something like Tórshavn or Akureyri, where I live in the north of Iceland, and to see the difference, because there should be a pretty big difference.
Yeah,
when we would go out, we wouldn't pre-drink very often. Like I was saying, like with this example of half off sushi and cocktails on a Tuesday, we didn't only do it because of the good price. We loved the ambiance. We loved the environment. I want to go to this bar today because it's just so beautiful. And the setup just feels so good and the music is nice. But if your drinks are artificially expensive because of government taxes on alcohol, people don't get to go enjoy that environment. No. It just hurts. It hurts all around. So I hope that would change at some point.
Some people think that that there might be something about the climate or the isolation or how far north it is that makes people more inclined to drink a lot or to binge drink. Some people think that there's something about living in a place like the Faroe Islands, which means that you have to limit people's access to alcohol.
I think
in order to prevent what people otherwise would do. I'm not saying that's right, but a lot of people think that.
I don't know the history well enough to really comment on, any sort of larger social patterns. But what I've heard is that the reason we had things like Vínbúðin and Rusan, actually even pre that, the reason it was banned is because, and I heard this from some older friends in the Faroes, is that it was so common for the sailors, which was the number one job for so long was sailing. They would make a ton of money sailing, and they would blow it on alcohol.
They would come home, and they would be home for a couple of months, and they don't have anything else to do.
Yeah. But I also heard that sailors would come home, and they would have already spent much of their money, and now there's not much left for the wife and the kids, and it created a huge issue for society. And they had to be like, okay, that's got to stop. Like, our people are going to starve. Our economy's going to tank. Like, in that sense, it makes sense to do such a thing. But once a thing has served its purpose, mission accomplished, the social attitude and the behaviors have changed. That's not a problem anymore. Continuing the medicine is just going to hurt. You don't take medicine from the doctor forever. If you get sick, you take it until you're better. And then you stop. So it's strange that we would just
it still remains to this day, and the alcohol stores. And in Iceland they've kind of so they haven't brought it out to the grocery stores and stuff like that yet, but now there are these websites where you can go on and buy alcohol, and it's some kind of loophole. I don't know how it works, but
I've heard about that.
I wonder if it's just literally the police who don't care enough about it to do anything about it. But now there are these websites where you can go on and buy alcohol from this website, and they will deliver it to your house. So it's even easier than going to a grocery store. You don't even have to get out of your house to go. They will bring it right to you.
What I heard is that if the server is based in another country, then that you can sell based on that country's laws.
Okay.
That's what I heard. I don't know if it's true, but
it's
clever.
It doesn't go with the fact that apparently we got these alcohol stores because they wanted to do it a certain way, and then allowing this other thing, it doesn't make any sense.
It's a loophole. I'm pretty sure Vínbúðin and whatever government bodies are involved with that, I'm pretty sure they've been active in trying to kill it, like shut it down.
Yeah, I bet they have.
At Costco. So I'm a big fan of Costco.
He loves Costco.
Yeah.
He's in Reykjavik now for a few days. He's already been twice in Costco just this weekend.
I've been in Reykjavik 2 days. I've been in Costco twice.
He's going again tomorrow.
I plan on going again tomorrow. That's true.
Is it because you miss America?
No, I don't know. I think there is some nostalgia to it. I worked inside of a Costco for so long, close to 10 years when I was in the US. And I think there's just something about going back in. It just kind of feels like, which is a bit, it's nice in a way, but it's kind of sad in a way. Like, what does that say about like the US experience that going into like a mega store feels like home. Like how capitalist, like
you're lighting up right now.
how material.
And when we've gone to Costco, you light up.
I do light up.
You go in there and you see everything that's there, and it's exciting.
It feels like a wormhole. Like I was just like sucked into like back home.
You never know what's going to be there, so it's exciting. You're going to see, what kind of strange stuff or clothes and whatever they have in there.
When we were there yesterday, and I bought some margarita mix, the guy who I was just chatting with, waiting while he was preparing the thing, he whipped out this binder because I brought up that we were comparing the prices to Vinbuden, and I was like, "Hey, I thought the price difference was going to be pretty big, but me and my friend were just looking this up. It was like 500 kroner difference or 1,000 difference." And he's like, "Hold on." Boom, like this heavy binder of laminated papers, and he's like, "Here are all the prices from Vinbuden. Here are all the prices from us, but it's 3 months old."
Yeah.
And then I looked at it, and I was like, "Things have changed."
Yeah.
Because this was showing like 50% cheaper, 75% cheaper on certain items.
Yeah, and when we were looking, it was not even 10%.
No.
No.
Which means, and I found that we looked up Hennessy, I think it was. I found Hennessy on there, it was just on the first page. And it was saying something like 60 or 70% cheaper. And I was like, whoa, that's not true, man. We just looked this up. And he's like, yeah, like I said, it's 3 months old.
That's an easy cop-out.
Which means Vinbuden must have changed their prices.
They might have.
Because I know that's been an issue. It's been a political issue here that Costco's doing these buy online so that we can sell you alcohol even though we're not part of the government monopoly, system. So Vinbuden must have been like, people aren't buying from us now, so we gotta lower the prices.
Yeah, and Costco has they sell alcohol. They have a limited variety. They don't have all the stuff Vinbuden has. So I imagine maybe Vinbuden, as soon as Costco starts selling Hennessy, Vinbuden might realize, we need to lower the price of Hennessy.
Yeah.
And the other stuff that the Vinbuden has, that Costco doesn't have,
stays the same problem.
Yeah, they don't have to change that.
And this is a bit upsetting because that means that Vinbuden could have always just lowered the price. It was just artificially high, and it's upsetting because I can see, I've worked in the service industry for so long in bar management. I know what it's like to, chart out every product and how much money are you making on the product, and it's tough. It's tough to run a successful bar or restaurant. The margins can be pretty slim, and when you are forced to buy your alcohol at artificially high prices, it's frustrating. Yeah, so it's...
Yeah, so you would have an insider perspective of that. You would know the bad sides of it especially well because you have been working bars a lot, and that's I know you're going to be doing something really interesting in a few weeks in July in the Faroes. So why don't you tell our viewer what you're going to be doing in July? Yeah,
so I was lucky enough to make
Gonna get a drink. Sorry.
Yeah. To build a relationship with the people over at G Festival. G Festival in Gota in the Faroe Islands is wonderful. Like, Gota is gorgeous.
G Festival, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna show some pictures of G Festival right now. Beautiful.
Cool. It's stunning. Gota is beautiful. G Festival is just so fun, and the people that run it are so passionate about having a great festival experience. So I've been running the VIP area for G Festival for 2 years now. This is gonna be my third year, and I'm very excited to go back.
So the VIP area is a bar for people that are working at the festival and for the artists and stuff like that, where they can go and mingle and hang out and like a special area.
Yeah, you can't buy VIP tickets. You have to be given a VIP ticket. So exactly like you said, yeah. Staff and musicians and guests and stuff like that.
And the festival's on this beach there with a beautiful view in a fjord. So you got big mountains on each side.
Yeah.
And so you've been doing, this is the third year. I was there with you for the first year you were doing it.
Yeah. And it scared you away. You haven't been back since.
Yeah, never again.
It's a lot of work, man. It's
fun.
hectic.
It was fun.
But it's fun.
I loved it. I loved it. Yeah, if it was easy to get accommodation there, I would love to do that.
Yeah,
but
that's
that
the
was
toughest part.
That's the toughest part.
That's the toughest
It's a tiny little village, and there's about, I don't know if it's 8,000 people to go to the festival or something.
No, it's not that much. I think I guess I don't know for sure, but what I think I remember hearing is that on a busy year, it might be like 5,000.
Oh, okay.
But it can range between 3 to 5.
Okay.
Or 2.5 to 5, depending, something like that.
Okay. I think I remember seeing that the most people that have been there was for a concert where it was 10,000 people.
What? For real?
For Europe?
Oh, yeah. At G Festival or Sumar Festival?
G Festival.
At G Festival. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's before my time, so I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. But anyway, so there's thousands of people that come to this tiny village, and so it's really difficult to get accommodation. So most people would have to stay in somebody's house nearby, or if they live nearby, then they just stay there, or the camping area. And so when I was helping you out there, we were staying in this loft, and it was kind of moldy, and it wasn't a nice place to stay. But it was really fun to work there.
Yeah.
And you're going to do it the third time now. And was there any big difference between the first time and second time you were doing this?
I mean, my stress level definitely went down a bit because it was familiar, but it's still pretty stressful. But stressful in a good way. When you're working a lot for something that you're passionate about, it almost doesn't feel like work, but it's like the stress level's up here and it's like go. Yeah. But that's how it is in a busy sort of bar setting. And that's what you want, that's a healthy bar setting. So I definitely learned about how to place the staff better to accommodate, because we were so desperate that first Saturday, which is when you were working, I think. I was like, oh, this is gonna be the busiest night in the VIP. I better put 3 bartenders. That should be enough. Not even close, man. We had the 3 plus myself, and I saw 2 of the other bartenders just like partying, and I was like, you? Can you help us, please? Yeah. And they were like, yeah, hell yeah. And I was like, let's go. So we were like 6 people.
It's really busy.
It was so busy. So fun, but so busy, but yeah, I really enjoy it. And I really like the people at G Festival, the people running it. And I love having this excuse to go back to the Faroes and this amazing festival experience as well, So I really like it, yeah.
So, and you moved away from the Faroes a few years ago. You moved to Akureyri, where you live now.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I'm in the north of Iceland now.
And like you say, the Faroes you feel Faroese in some ways. You told me.
Yeah, I do. A part of me feels Faroese, yeah.
And so it's important for you to have some reasons to go back there.
Yeah.
And you got this really cool thing at the G Festival.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I moved to the Faroes when I was 30. And I'm 40 now. And I think there are some advantages to moving to a new place when you're younger. Because it's just easier to mingle with people. The older we get, it just kind of seems like the more settled people get into their ways.
Yeah.
And the more responsibilities we have, the less free time a lot of people have. There's kids and blah, blah, blah. So, being 40... and going to a new place and trying to network and meet new people and stuff, it definitely feels different than being 30. And even at 30, it felt a bit funny sometimes, But so yeah, it comes with its challenges. And my first few years in the Faroes were rough. It makes sense. My first few years in another new place are going to be a bit rough. But my girl loves it there. It's her home. My son loves it there, and I've got a wonderful extended family, like my in-laws and her siblings. But it's really a great family to be a part of, so that makes a big difference.
Yeah. So if you got a little kid, then you really need a support network like that.
Yeah. It takes a village.
Yeah, it takes a village to raise a child.
It takes a village, man.
Yeah.
But I mean, you've been in Iceland now for how many years now?
10 years?
Not consecutively.
Not consecutively, no.
No.
Moved to Iceland first in 2013. Yeah, so almost 10 years.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And why did you move to Iceland in the first place?
I moved to Iceland to study psychology.
Yeah.
And I wanted to study psychology, and I looked at universities in different places, and I saw that University of Iceland they have a psychology program here, and that the way it works is that if you apply, if you have a high school diploma, you get in.
Oh, okay.
But then you have to pass the tests. You have to have a certain grade level to stay in. And so the first semester, people talk about it like a sieve, where they we were 320 that started, and after the first semester, it was about 90.
Whoa, that's a big difference.
Yeah. So most of the people, they didn't have the. You need to have a certain average grade after the first semester to get on to the next one.
Okay.
And I literally was right on that. So I think you needed 7.5 to get to the next semester or something like that. And my average grade for first semester was literally just 7.5.
Yeah, okay.
So I got into the second one.
Okay.
And that's kind of the most difficult sim there. So when I got past that,
Then it was fine.
it was still really, really difficult the whole time. I didn't speak any Icelandic, and it's all taught in Icelandic. So I was learning Icelandic at the same time as I was learning all the things they're teaching now. All the classes are in Icelandic, so I would show up to the classes if it was if I had to, if they had to just sign that I was in attendance. But I wouldn't really understand much, so I'd just be sitting there, and then I would just have to read all the material to prepare for the exams and stuff.
But being Faroese, speaking Faroese, you could probably read it just fine.
Not just fine, and this is extremely complicated texts about psychology and all in Icelandic, and they
terminology.
And Icelandic doesn't use a lot of loan words, so a text in Icelandic about psychological things will have just their own words that have been invented here. So they wouldn't say, for example, a psychological test. In Danish, the word for a psychological test would be psykologisk test.
Yeah, okay.
So you can get that.
Yeah.
And Icelandic, it would be sálfræðilegt próf.
Same.
Very similar. Very similar.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. That's piece of cake.
But it was very difficult.
Yeah, I see. And that was, I mean, was Google Translate efficient with Icelandic at that time?
I remember copy pasting I was in a class, and I had the slides on my computer, the PDF, and I copy pasted the words into the slide, and it would just be gibberish, and sometimes it would even say like sex swing or something crazy, where it's just like I don't think that's what he's talking about.
Maybe it was.
Google Translate was
psychology class.
It didn't work at all for Icelandic back then.
Okay.
It's a lot better now.
Yeah.
But still not perfect.
ChatGPT is pretty good at translating.
Yeah. And speaking of Google Translate, Faroese got into Google Translate
like a week ago or something, right?
I think, a few days ago.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So.
That is exciting.
But I imagine it's just as bad as Icelandic was 10 years ago, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what kind of advancements Google is doing with Google Translate, but someone had suggested to me like a month or two ago that I use ChatGPT to translate something into Faroese, and I tried it, and I sent it to some Faroese friends, and I was like, how does this look? And they were like, that's almost perfect. Just got to tweak a few things, and I was like, Google Translate's going to lose a lot of...
That's funny, because recently I went on ChatGPT, and I just wondered how much Faroese does ChatGPT know. So, what came to my mind is I wrote in there, write me a CV in Faroese. And it spit out this CV in Faroese, but it was just made up. Like maybe half of the words were Faroese words. The rest was just like gibberish, what I saw.
Okay. So I'm not very techie, but I follow some techie people on social media because I kind of wish I was. You know, it seems like it's such a growing world, the tech world, and I kind of feel like I'm being left behind a little bit, so I'm trying to like hang on to some things. And so a bunch of people I follow talk about how to use ChatGPT better. And they were like, if you don't know how to ask ChatGPT something, ask it how to ask it something. So that's what I did before I did the translation to Faroese. And I was like, hey, what sort of prompt should I ask you if I want something translated as best as possible into Faroese? And then it gave me something where I could copy paste and fill in the blank, which is what I did. I filled in the blank with what I needed translating, but the prompt, the structure of it, it fed to me to feed it back. Yeah. And then that, I think, is part of what led to a successful I don't know if that would have helped. for example. But
And ChatGPT is also kind of unpredictable because it won't let you know if it makes something that's not good.
yeah, you have to ask it.
But it doesn't. So it could. If you ask it, for example, what's the history of Faroes, because it's obscure. There's not many books written about Faroes history stuff, so it wouldn't have access to a lot of Faroes history.
Okay, makes sense.
And if you ask it, what's the history, let's say a random church in the Faroe Islands, it might spit you out a whole thing about what the history of the church is.
Might be way off though.
It might be made up. And it doesn't say, I'm not sure, but here's a guess. It doesn't say that.
Yeah.
It just spits it out as if this is the reality.
I ran into this a little bit when I was working at a school in Akureyri. I was helping a student with some assignments, and one of them was about some Iceland saga, like some sagas. And I'd read part of it, but I didn't remember it so well. And I had like a limited amount of time. I had like 30 minutes before I had to go talk to this kid about this saga. And of course, I want to be prepared. I want to be a professional. But here I was 30 minutes beforehand, not prepared. So I was like, ChatGPT, help me.
Yeah.
Tell me this character, I forgot the character's name. Could you quickly summarize how many characters were in the first 2 chapters and the relationship to the family?
Yeah.
And it spit out, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay, thank goodness. Copy, paste. Okay, so I'm going to prepare this. Wait a minute. That's not his wife, for example. And I went back and I was like, ChatGPT, are you sure that's his wife? And it was like, thank you so much for asking that.
Yeah.
I can see now after further review, it is not. Let me correct that. And it corrected it. And I was like, okay, cool. Copy, paste. But wait a minute. And I was like, ChatGPT, is that really the son of, like, oh, thanks again for pointing that out. You are correct. That is not that relationship there. And I was like, what the hell's going on here, man? Like,
Yeah.
But so you're right. Yeah, sometimes it will just.
I don't really trust, you know, and the
It's in the early stages. It's improving. It's a new technology.
Yeah.
You know, like.
And so when ChatGPT spits something out, you're only able to know if it's right or wrong if you already know.
Yeah.
So you can't really make it do something if you don't know it, you know? If you ask it to write a paragraph about, let's say, a random Faroese church, it might spit out a really good paragraph. And if you know this real story of it, you can see the paragraph and you'll be able to tell, okay, this is good or not. Then you can use it or not. It just would save you the actual writing of it.
Yeah.
But in order to know if something's really good, you actually have to know the stuff.
Yeah, you gotta be able to check it because it's out some bullshit sometimes.
Stuff up. Yeah.
Some of the people I know that use ChatGPT won't use it for, very exact, specific things, but they'll use it as a jumping place. Be like, hey, ChatGPT, I'm going to write about a Faroese church. What sorts of things should I include in that? And it might be like, okay, make sure you talk about the history of this, and then this, and then this. And you're like, okay, cool, I should incorporate those things. But yeah, it's a new technology, and it seems like a lot of people are getting on board. And the newest version has internet access. So if you pay for...
You browse the web?
Yeah.
Cool.
It's a bit scary, man. Like it's exciting in a kind of a scary way,
Yeah.
But I'm excited for it.
It's going to change the world a lot.
I think it was...
I can't imagine being a teacher right now with all the kids using GPT to do all the assignments and stuff.
But I think it's a good thing for that. For example, one of the things I always hated in school, I just hated it, and part of it is because my memory is not the best. But if we were taught something, I could really get into the concept. So, you teach me about some economic concept, and I could be like, that makes sense. I could talk about the concept for an hour. The concept makes sense, and that's the important part. But then on an exam, they're like, okay, in what year did you have to name the person in the year, did they say that? And I was like, I don't fucking know. Why is that even on the test? I can look it up in 3 seconds. Why are you testing me on that? You should be testing us on the concept. Am I learning the concept? Not the date and the month and the last name, which, it's good to give credit to the people that come up with these things, and I can see the importance of it. But to say someone knows or doesn't know something because they don't remember the fucking year that it was written is stupid. So maybe it will help to shift the way that we're teaching things. Maybe we can stop focusing on the fluff and like the decorative stuff that's really not at the core of the lesson. And let's get to concepts.
And in the modern age, where everybody has access to these dates at a finger point, you just have to take up your phone and you can look up what year it was.
And that's now, but who knows? 3 years from now, Google had Google Glasses for a while, or Google Lens.
Neuralink.
Neuralink.
It's connected directly into your nervous system.
That's exciting. It's weird, but I think it's so exciting. It's like the Matrix, man. Like, I was one of the people that saw the Matrix, and like they plugged him in, and he was like, "I know Kung Fu," and I was like, "How fucking cool would that be?"
Just download stuff.
I want to know. I want to have PhD level knowledge on this brand of philosophy.
Yeah.
Boom, there it is. You just saved yourself nearly a lifetime of study.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's revolutionary, if it's possible. Revolutionary.
I think we're headed for a technological reset. We talked about this one time before, where I think that. I think so technology we're always advancing. It's always getting more and more advanced, and I think it also makes us more and more vulnerable, because our lives are relying more and more on this technology to work. So we rely on the heating system in the city here to provide us heat to this apartment, and we rely on the electronic system here to provide the electricity for everything we need.
Yeah.
And I think, to me, the technology is it's like a house of cards that we keep building on, and the higher and higher, the bigger it gets, the more vulnerable it is. The more can happen from just a wind gust. So I think we're a lot more vulnerable than we realize we are, and I think something's going to happen. There's going to be a solar storm, or there's going to be, I don't know, it could be a nuclear
Y2K,
war,
a new Y2K.
Another Y2K or something. I think something's going to happen, and it's going to just take out some row of the house of cards, and it's all going to come down, and we're going to be back to square one.
If we're lucky, that will be what happens. If we're unlucky, it becomes fully self-aware and decides to completely take over control
like
of
a Terminator or Matrix kind of thing. Yeah.
But there is a conversation in the Matrix about exactly what you just mentioned, and I think it's in part 2, where Neo is having a conversation with the mayor of Zion, the human world outside of the Matrix, and the mayor shows him all the machines that their city depends on, and they kind of get into the philosophy. He's like, I don't know how this works. I don't know what that machine does. I know we need it. I know we'll die if it stops working, but I don't know how it works. And they kind of I don't remember the extent of the conversation, but it's a really interesting thing to think about, this house of cards that you're talking about.
Yeah, I think that happens in human history all the time, where some society grows and gets more and more advanced, and then it loses a water source or something, and it screws up everything. And so we're all going to die. I
mean, with or without AI or technological advancements, we're on the path to dying anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, check out with the global warming and climate change, we're on that path.
Yeah.
So if this is just another car on the road, the highway to hell or whatever, AC/DC reference, it doesn't change the road. It's hopefully it would help us somehow, but if not, that's where we're going anyway.
I think in the year 3000 that people will be living in hunter-gatherer bands again in most of the world, something like that.
I think if we're lucky, in the year 3000 there will be people, and they'll be living in hunter-gathering situations. I think that's one of the better outcomes. Yeah. Which is a bit sad and depressing, but
I think in the year 4000 they might be excavating the ruins of the society we have today, and they might be trying to say, they might be like, so there was people living here in Iceland around the year 2000. Wow.
We could get deep into that. There's been some Joe Rogan podcasts where he's talking to the guy who did that new docu-series on Netflix, talking about ancient civilizations.
Yeah.
And he's like...
Ancient Apocalypse. Graham Hancock.
Yeah. And he was showing scuba diving footage in the Caribbean of roadways under the water.
Yeah, the Pimini Road.
Yeah. So that's what you're talking about. In the year 4000, they'll say this and be like, was there a civilization? And that's kind of what maybe we're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a path.
Yeah, and that's what, and I've got this from him. So.
Oh, okay.
So I heard about this thing first from him, and I don't have any evidence for it. It's just like my pet theory. And it's just like something I think is interesting to imagine. That there's that human history has had a lot of like going up and then back down to square zero and up and square zero again, and that's something that happens regularly. Humans have been around for 300,000 years or something.
I thought it was less, but maybe, yeah. Could
they
be.
keep pushing that back. So first it was 100,000, then it was 200,000. Now they're saying 300,000.
Okay.
And who knows how much? Because what we got now in Iceland, 1,000 years ago, there was just rocks.
Yeah.
People building their houses out of rocks and turf. And now we're living in this thing.
This is pretty wild. Like, did you see the movie Don't Look Up?
Mm-hmm. It's a good
film.
It's
such a good film. It was very well written, very well made.
Yeah.
And such a great. It's not a parody of what's going on right now. It's just kind of like, it's a bit of a parody, but it's just a great film. And when I moved to the Faroes, I was very lucky when I moved to the Faroes that they announced for the first time ever a master's program taught in English. Mm-hmm. That started 6 months after I arrived. Yeah. And I was like, well, what a gift from the universe.
University of the Faroe Islands.
Yeah, yeah. And it was a master's program in West Nordic Studies, Governance and Sustainable Management. And my bachelor's was already in political science. So that was a great way forward. And living in the Nordic region now, which was like a dream come true, really, it was perfect. And one of the most frustrating things of studying this was learning that you can't just tell people that there's a problem. Mm-hmm. And I think Don't Look Up really hits on that. They were like, hey, everybody, if we don't do anything, we're going to die. Mm-hmm. And everyone's just like, ha, 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 ha. If you're lucky. Or they're like, shut up. Or they're like, you're wrong, or whatever. And that's so true. Mm-hmm. So learning about, climate science and what's happening to the oceans, and it's just so heavy. It's so heavy, really, what's happening. And the mere fact that you couldn't just go to a stranger on the street and be like, hey, this is really important. It's impacting both of us. It's your whole family and your entire future. Do you want to work together on it? The fact that you just can't be like, fire, there's a fire in the building. Yeah. That's the most frustrating part, I think, about the whole thing. Yeah. To have a certain sort of knowledge that you study, and then to have to put so much effort into keeping it to yourself, because it will just alienate or piss people off. Yeah. Because of human psychology.
Most people are really only concerned with a very limited amount of problems. Yeah. And most people have a lot of problems that they're not working on doing anything with right here, right now. There could be a million different reasons for it. Yeah. And it has to do with priorities, and you can't prioritize everything. So if you prioritize, for example, being comfortable, if you want to be comfortable, if you want to be able to be calm and have a relaxed evening, so you can have a good night's sleep and go to work the next day, then you might sacrifice some discomfort. You might not want to be researching everything that's going on in the world and all the terrible things that could happen to us. So everybody has some problems that they're not doing anything about right here, right now, because they're focused on some other things.
That's true. And this is one of the things that we studied also, is like time scales. We studied time scales and how people make decisions based on certain time scales. So like, if I'm going to be more concerned with how my finances are going to impact my ability to buy a house in the next 5 years than I am how I spend my money today is going to impact the long-term 100-year road of climate change. Where am I buying? So like this time scales. And then I've also heard the psychological argument, or the I forget the term for it. It's like evolutionary psychology. Idea behind it. It's like we're not designed. We're not built. I don't want to say designed. I'm not saying that we have I'm not saying we have a creator, evolution.
Not directly designed.
Yeah, but like the way that our brains work has never been to consider 50 to 100 years to 500 years down the road.
No.
I think there's a part of all of us that is kind of like errors out when you do that.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. We're not really built to consider. I mean, you start talking to some people about black holes, or like, you know, the number of light years between us and something else, and you just see like a glaze come over, and you know, and I have a glaze come over myself with certain subjects as well. Certain things bore me to death, whatever. But there are certain things that are so difficult to comprehend, and I think this is one of them.
Yeah.
And it sucks because we're all fucked.
We're all fucked.
We're so fucked.
Yeah.
So it's like.
But not right now.
I mean, kind of.
I think we're pretty comfy right now.
Are we?
I'm pretty comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. When you say we, you know, you talk about humanity, or are you talking about you, or are you talking about us in this room? You know, like we as a whole, humanity, are not very comfortable right now. Like the number of heat deaths are rising every year, and
here?
No, maybe not here in Iceland, but like I've been reading some stuff about like in Spain and France and Italy, like.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a dark road to go down.
And I'm not minimizing that. I'm just changing the frame of reference to. We are very comfortable in this room right now.
We're privileged.
It's easy to forget.
That's true.
And not think about everything else. And to a lot of people, that's the reality. What you see is what you think about. And most people here in Iceland are in very comfy rooms. There's no heat deaths. So you're not really reminded a lot about what could be happening around the world, or what could be down the road in 100 years.
That's so true. You know, to tie Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu into this.
So this is turning into a full Joe Rogan podcast.
Kind of, yeah, I guess.
He does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, like the famous Joe Rogan.
Did you say Brazilian?
Is that not what it's called?
No, it is. I mean, there is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Brazilian?
Yeah, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, English is not my first language.
I know. It's silly for me to pick on it.
Sorry.
Yeah, he speaks way more languages than I do, and we're only speaking English right now because I would need to in order to have this conversation. I'm just teasing you. But you're right. Maybe we don't want this turning into a Joe Rogan podcast, and
no, tell me about.
We can leave the BJJ.
Tell me about the BJJ, the Brazilian.
There's I've been training it for a long time now, since 2008, on and off, and one thing that I've started to kind of realize over the past couple years that I know gets talked about a little bit in the jiu-jitsu community, but not so much. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you will have no choice. If you train it, you will have no choice but to be in really uncomfortable situations. You're going to be uncomfortable a lot. Maybe most of the time even. For years. You're going to be in some of perhaps the most uncomfortable situations, physically and mentally. If you're dealing with like claustrophobia, or you're dealing with like anxiety, or you're feeling stress, or your survival instincts are kicking in, you're going to be in some of the most uncomfortable situations imaginable.
Yeah, I went to some training with you.
Oh yeah,
it was very uncomfortable.
Yeah, and
it was fun and it was exciting, but it was very uncomfortable.
It is uncomfortable, and I think so many of us, and I think part of it is because our lives are so luxurious these days. We've got stores with everything we want to buy, and if you live in many countries and in the world, the minimum wage is livable, and you can have your Netflix and your air conditioning in a car. We have very comfy lives. And the comfier we get, the less tolerance we seem to have with being uncomfortable. And I think we're doing ourselves a disservice, because so many things worthwhile involve a sort of discipline or sacrifice with being uncomfortable to achieve something greater. And I think that's something that BJJ does really good. If you're going to stick with it, you will be forced to learn to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations. And I don't know if it's the BJJ training or if it's ADHD or what it is, but I find myself much more willing and comfortable to have uncomfortable conversations with people than others seem to have tolerance for. You know, so like I worked at a school and I saw a lot of bullying. And I started talking to teachers about bullying, and like so many people would be like, don't want to talk about it, just don't mention it, and then I can pretend it's not there, and then keep the peace sort of thing. And I'm like, is it really so bad to have an uncomfortable conversation to do the right thing? Like, and I think that ties to what you're talking about. We get comfortable, we get cozy, we get lazy. Someone shows up with some inconvenient or uncomfortable info, and we're just like, nope. And then we put up these walls so that we can keep living our fantasy. And and that's why we're all gonna die.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
We would die anyway.
That's true. We are gonna die anyway.
The guarantee, no matter what, we're gonna die.
Maybe with Neuralink and AI, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Here's hoping to AI saving us from ourselves. This
Cheers.
podcast is brought to you by MS.
Yeah.
Vitamin D enhanced
I decided to take it out just because I think so far every episode I've had some milk. Usually I've got the milk and the Coke.
Yeah.
I don't have the Coke, so I just decided to put the milk there. Maybe they'll sponsor me.
Maybe the milk company will
MS?
sponsor you.
MS Milk.
You're more likely to get sponsored if you bring out Faroese milk every time, I think.
That would be funny if I got in Faroese milk, because the Kilk with the Faroese milk is slightly better.
I mean,
Faroese milk has a different,
that's how I always drank
combines
it.
better with Coke.
Yeah.
What did you think of Kilk? Kilk milk and Coca-Cola is a very popular drink in the Faroe Islands. It's a national drink of the Faroes, 50-50, milk and Coca-Cola.
I mean, every wedding and birthday I went to, that's what people drink.
Yeah.
It's you toast with it, and
And here's one really funny thing. So the first episode I did of the Serious Comedians podcast, I brought out the Kilk, and then the next day, it was all over social media that Lindsay Lohan and Pepsi had done an ad where they were combining milk and Coca-Cola.
Her milk? What sort of collaboration were you talking about with Pepsi and Lindsay Lohan?
Did you just say her milk?
I did just say her. I was trying to think, like, why would she be involved with a milk collaboration with Pepsi?
I don't. That's a good question.
It's possible.
A lot of celebrities have like wines and vodkas and stuff like that. I don't think Lindsay Lohan has a milk, but after this ad, she should.
I mean,
I might put the ad right now, right here. I might not, depending on copyright stuff. But you might see Lindsay Lohan drinking Coca-Cola.
It's an untapped market, you know, for
Lindsay Lohan milk?
Celebrity
Milks?
Milks.
Yeah, I would buy that.
I mean, George Clooney's got a tequila. The Rock has a tequila. Why not a milk?
Why is there no milk?
He's like, these are my cows.
A lot of people drink milk.
Yeah, more than tequila, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Maybe not. I don't know.
You know, there's a lot of people say milk's not good for you, but neither is alcohol.
I mean, that's debatable. I don't know, right? Like, in moderation.
In moderation.
Maybe. I once read that the oldest woman in the world, this was a long time ago, swore that her secret was a shot of whiskey every day.
Shot of whiskey every day.
She was like 104.
She's probably died since then.
She's definitely dead. I'm quite confident about it. Yeah, she was much. It was like 100 and something. 104.
Everybody who's ever drank whiskey has died or is going to die.
That is causation. That is a statistical connection there between those things.
The same is true for milk. So same. So why can't you put out a celebrity milk?
I think they should do it. Branded cows, or not branded cows, but like, I don't know.
Branded cows?
I didn't mean to say brand. I meant like cows as part of the brand.
Cow brand, yeah.
Like if The Rock had a milk, like they would all be cows with like strict workout regimen, and they're just buff. So it's like The Rock's cow milk, you know.
It would be called buff milk.
Yeah, some shit like that. You know, I don't know.
Yeah. And just so it's clear, we're not joking. This is a serious conversation at the Serious Comedians podcast.
I mean, this whole thing's been serious.
Yeah.
If you haven't tried Kilk, you really should.
And you might notice the setup's a bit different than the other episodes. And the reason is that I used to do it at the city library. And I used to do it on the weekends.
He's been banned.
And
They don't allow him back
they
anymore.
didn't like the Kilk.
They didn't like the Kilk. And he was showing up naked.
There's a sign in the studio that says no drinks.
Isn't that like a cultural prejudice? Like,
Yeah, I feel like
weren't you like, I'm Faroese, I'm allowed to drink Kilk?
nobody respects Faroese.
That's rough, man. That's rough. They should.
Yeah. But depending on how I don't know how the audio, if it's good enough, or the video, but this might be my new setup for this. I don't have to book any studio time anywhere. So thank you for joining me and being my guinea pig here.
It's been fun, man. It's been fun.
I just realized it sounds like I'm saying goodbye to you right now. That's not what I was.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I was like, okay, we're done.
Accidentally almost started wrapping it up. No, I'm just appreciating you right
Thank
now.
you. Thank you. I appreciate you too.
And we started talking a bunch of different things, but you were talking about the Faroes and those embarrassing moments.
Oh yeah.
And cultural shock stuff.
Yeah. There's some embarrassing stories that I've told in the past, and I even told some of these stories on when you first invited me to do stand-up in the Faroes in Reynsrúge.
Yeah.
But I've been told since that these stories are a bit rough, a bit like
a bit rough.
You know, like I don't know.
Crass, or what do you mean?
Yeah, crass. Yeah, a bit crass. Crass. See, I was looking for the English word, and you had it ready, and I was at a loss.
Very smart.
Yeah, I should drink more Kilk. Better for my.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are some language, like some linguistic things.
But what was it about that story? What did they tell you about that? So we could go into that story. Are you comfortable telling that story?
I mean, yeah. I mean,
because I don't remember it being too crass.
I don't think it's very crass.
But some people just aren't used to like crass stories at all. So they might. Speaking of discomfort.
Yeah, and I think this kind of touches on that. So like one of the things, and this could maybe be a conversation for later or for another day. But one of the things we're really uncomfortable in general in our Western society that I've experienced, at least where I live, anything to do with sex or sexuality or sexual body parts makes people so uncomfortable. Yeah. Even though it's such a big part of being human. Yeah. Like it occupies so much of our mental state. Yeah. And what we think about and what we desire and our motivations in life and how we behave. Even
something
though
we all do.
It's something we all do.
Really uncomfortable about.
But it's like you don't want to fucking talk about it. Oh, did you mention testicles? Take it easy. It's like what's the? I don't know. It's a cultural thing that I've never really understood, and that's part of the reason why I think it's considered crass.
I want to let you tell this story, but I also want to say that I think there's two things. I can think of two things that everybody does. But we feel real uncomfortable about, and one of them is pooping. So if somebody goes to the bathroom, they might say, "I'm going to go pee." Yeah. They wouldn't necessarily say, "I'm going to poo."
Yeah. Unless you were with your closest family, you'd be like, "All right, number two," or something. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And the other one is sex, and it's something everybody does. And sex is different than pooing because you do it with somebody.
Wait, you don't do those things together?
Oh well, no. I'm not judging.
Some people do.
I'm not judging. So sex, I guess ideally you do it with somebody else.
Yeah.
And it's something you do with somebody else, but that you don't talk much about. So it's changed a lot recently. So some people are more comfortable talking about these kind of stuff. But there's a lot of people out there who have never talked to somebody really about sex. There's a lot of people out there who have a partner, they have a sex life, but they never talk about it. Mm-hmm. It's one thing that we do with other people, and we never talk about it.
It's a problem.
And imagine if let's say golf. Imagine you golfed always with your buddy, but you never talked about it.
Yeah,
that's not the case for anything else except sex. Yeah. Something you do with people.
Oh, and religion and politics, perhaps.
But if you go to church with your buddies,
I guess
you might be like, you want to go to church together tomorrow?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people with sex life. They're not necessarily. Would you like to have sex tomorrow? What would you like to do? Do you want to, you know what I mean?
Did you ever see a film called Kinsey with Liam Neeson?
No.
It's based on a scholar named Kinsey. And if I remember correctly, he was the first scholar in the Western world to research human sexuality and like put it on the books.
Wait, I might have the book. Hold
The
on.
Kinsey book?
I'm not. Let me see who the author is. I just got this the other day. I borrowed this from a colleague. No, this is Ian Kerner. Anyway, so I've been told this is the Bible of sex. The Come As You Are. This is the.
They named it "Come As You Are."
This is the ad section of the podcast.
That's a joke. The titling. Of
Yeah.
this, "Come As You Are."
Come As You Are.
Okay.
And the sequel is called Come Together. And you see how sex makes you laugh.
Yeah, I mean, it should. It shouldn't be so fucking serious, you know. Like,
So sponsored by Milk and
sex.
Ian Kerner.
Human Sexuality has sponsored this. So.
Yeah. So you were talking about the first researcher.
Yeah. If according to the movie, I don't know how based in reality the entire movie was, but it is based on the scholar. This guy gets married. He was like a total nerd. He was like a biology bug nerd, a bug expert. He was a lecturer around bugs or something. So he's like a very systematized sort of thinker and really gets into like details and things. And he gets married. And in the film, he has sex with his wife on the first night. And it was awkward and weird. And it was painful for her. And he felt like guilt. And then the next day or soon thereafter, he was like, why can I not be comfortable with my wife and sex? You should be able to be comfortable. How have we never talked about sex before? How were we so ill-equipped for that moment, you know? And then he was like, I'm going to study it. And so he studied it. And now we have the Kinsey Institute, which is focused on human sexuality. And
that's really cool.
it's really cool. But that kind of, and that was in the 60s, I think, or something like that. 60s
when
or
people
70s.
started having sex.
When people started for the first time ever. And
I bet people weren't admitting much to it before that, right?
yeah. But just think of how long humans have been around. And I mean, Western civilization hasn't been around so
and
long.
having sex the whole time.
Yeah, loads of it. And yeah, so we don't like to talk about it so much. And I think that's part of why these two stories are perceived as crass. But I'll say the nicer of the two. And then we'll see what the audience reaction is.
Yeah, if you like the story, give it a thumbs up. If you dislike it,
thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
So I mean, when I first moved to the Faroes, my girlfriend's friends decided that they were going to teach me some Faroese. And you know how it is. Like, you go to a new place and you're going to learn the language. The very first thing people want to teach you are the bad words. It's funny. I get it. So they were like, she went to the store or something. We were having like a get together, playing some games, and she ran out to go get something. And they were like, "Hey, Luis, do you want to learn some Faroese?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, guys. Yeah, I want to learn some Faroese." And they were like, "Okay, when she comes back, you're gonna say," and you can correct me if I remember this wrong, but it's like, "Tu Moin Turafisa," or something like that. Okay. Yeah. Which translates, if I remember correctly, into "you are my dry cunt." Something like that, right? Yeah. And they were like, and I was like, okay, Turafisa. And okay, so what exactly is Turafisa? Oh, it means I love you. It means I love you. So when she comes back, you tell her I love you, and you say it like this.
Are you still friends with those people?
I mean, Facebook friends with those people. Okay. I mean, I knew they were fucking with me. Like, I knew they were joking, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'm sure this means I love you guys. But I was playing along, you know, it'd be funny. And so she shows up, and I say to her, and she was like, "Oh my God, what have my friends been telling you?" You know. So this was like one of the first Faroese things I learned how to say. Turafisa, dry cunt. There is also a very popular food in the Faroe Islands and here, which is dry fish, which is called turanfisk in Faroese. Turanfisk. Turanfisk sounds a lot to me at that time, like Turafisa. Turafisa, Turafisk. Okay? So I learned how to say Turafisa.
One letter difference.
Yeah, and phonetically and, you know, and syllables and stuff. And so fast forward, like, I don't know what it was, 2 months or something. And I'm driving my father-in-law at the time to a place. He's going to hang out with some friends. and he's got a bag of goodies like for the party, and he's like, "Hey, Luis, check out what I've got for the party," and he starts showing me things. He shows me that he's got some nice beers, and I thought to myself, what a great opportunity to show off how much Faroese I've been learning over these months. So, he shows me some beers, and I was like, oh, öl. And he was like, yeah, very good. Oh, öl, yeah, okay. And I was like, damn right. And he shows me some like lamb or something, and I was like, oh, kjot or kjot. I don't even remember. I confused my Icelandic. Kjot. I don't remember what it was exactly, but I was like, oh, kjot. And he was like, yeah, kjot. And he whips out some dry fish. And then I was like, pura fisa. And he was like, okay, see you later, Luis. Bye, I'm out. And I was like, I've just impressed my stepdad or my father-in-law, my father-in-law so much. And I'm driving off, and then like it dawned on me like a minute later, and I was like, oh my God. I just said dry cunt to my father-in-law's face. And I didn't know him very well, at the time. And it was just so embarrassing.
Yeah.
So embarrassing. And he never brought it up, thank God, after that. And I've never brought it up except for now and at some comedy events.
Yeah, except in front of a lot of people.
Except in front of a lot of people, I guess, yeah. I haven't said it to him, He's a great guy, and it's, that was just so cringe, bro. Like, can you imagine father-in-law, new country, dry cunt.
It's the worst thing you could tell your
to their
father-in-law.
face.
Yeah. If you'd said something about a penis or something, I don't think it would have been as...
The second story is worse. But yeah, it's
Okay. So everybody, cast your votes. Is that how crass? Put in the comments how crass is this story? We'll do it story 1. Crassness level from 0 to 10. 10 is the most crass possible. 0 is the least crass possible. If we have any viewers that have come to this point in the video, my mom maybe, hi.
Oh my God.
I don't think she would like that story very much, but mom.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying.
Write in the comment section if you can get yourself to it. Do it for us. Give us an idea, and you can put 10 if that's where you're at. Story 1. Write story 1 and then a number. And
for the record, it was an honest mistake. Like, it was an innocent, honest mistake. It was not my intention. Also, her friends taught me that fucking word first, and it got ingrained, you know what I'm saying? So, like, had they taught me turanfisk first, this would have never happened. Yeah. But no, they wanted to teach me something else.
They taught you something that you would never have to use.
Yep.
And then you used it accidentally with your father-in-law.
Yeah. That was pretty rough. And so the other story, we're adults. We're grown-ass men. We can talk about it. If our parents see this podcast, they know we're adults. Yeah. They know we've had sex at least once.
They were there when we were born. They know our age.
They were there. They know that we're grown.
Nobody else has evidence of our age except them.
And the government, perhaps. But
on a piece of paper.
And a piece of paper.
Yeah. They've got, they saw it with their own eyes.
Yeah.
So they know we're adults.
So we can talk about these things.
We can talk about these things.
We can talk about things. So the second story, which was more embarrassing, I was at like a confirmation in the Faroe Islands or something like that. And, in Faroese culture, much like here in Icelandic culture, confirmations are a big part. Kids turn 14 or 15, whatever, they throw this big party. They went to like Bible school for a few weeks or whatever. And all the family gets together to eat some food and give some money to the kids and stuff like that. So I show up to this event. I've only been in the Faroes for, 6 months, a year at most. And, grandma-in-law, grandpa-in-law, the whole extended family is in this living room, all sitting down. It's not very loud. You can hear things fairly well. I'm considered a loud person by Nordic standards. I think just because of like my Latino sort of like mannerisms and volume level. And so we're sitting down, we're eating, and I had just finished eating a bunch of food, and it was delicious, and I was full, and I wanted to show off my Faroese skills. Again. I'm a slow learner, Dahmer. I'm a slow learner.
Was this before or after the other one?
This is after. This is, months after. And so I want to show off my Faroese skills. And I want to say, I have eaten so much, or I'm so full, something along those lines. And I was like, okay, I know how to say I, I don't know how to say eat or ate in the past tense, but I knew how to say too much, which is vernegv. So I was like, blank vernegv. Okay, come on, Luis. How do you say ate? How do you say eat in the past tense? And I was like, okay, I've learned that there's a lot of similarities between Spanish and Faroese. So like how do you guys say in Faroese, for example, like the furniture in your room where you would put your clothes?
Komota.
Okay, what's another word for it? It might be an older word for it.
Do you mean wardrobe? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Wardropa.
Yeah. Can you say it again?
Wardropa.
Yeah. And in Spanish, it's guardarropa, which is basically the same but pronounced a bit different. And how do you guys say like a beach umbrella?
Parasol.
And in Spanish, it's parasol. And there's a few other examples just like this. And so I was trying to draw from this to help me fill in this blank. And I was like, okay, guardarropa, parasol. And I was like, well, in Spanish, eat is comer. And I was like, okay, so I'm just going to take the Spanish word comer and Faroese it up. So in this quiet room full of extended family, I somewhat loudly set my plate down. I'm an idiot. I should have never done this, you know. And and I just wanted to proclaim to the family around me in Faroese to show off that I'm learning, that I've eaten too much. So I do that, make some noise, and I was like, oh, ik kom vernegv, real loud. And I was just expecting like, good for you. But my mother-in-law was 2 seats away from me, and she just started busting out laughing like a deep, heartfelt laugh. And my girlfriend who was sitting next to me was just turned like red and stopped moving. And my grandpa-in-law in front of me had like a spoon on his way to his mouth, and I said that and like stopped. Yeah. And I just stood there. And then my mother-in-law was like, oh, really, Luis? Is that some problem you have that you want to tell us about? And I was like, so confused. I was like, what are you talking about? And then my girlfriend was like, you just announced to the whole room that you come too much.
There's a chapter in the book about that.
Yeah. Come for night. Chapter 8.
Chapter 3 is about if you come too much.
Yeah, apparently I do. Or at least that's what some people think. That's what you
announced to the people at
this. Man, it's like,
yeah.
Why couldn't I just keep my mouth shut?
Ik kommer för negv. That means I come too much.
Kommer för negv.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I still don't know how to say I ate too much in Faroese.
Yeah, I think it's too late.
How do you say it, David? How do you say it?
In Faroese?
Yeah.
Ik kommer för negv.
Yeah, okay.
It's in the book.
It's in the book. No. Man, it's just like...
Yeah, if you want to say I have eaten too much, you'd say I have ätit för negv.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Now that I've learned some more, that...
Yeah, so when you're going back to the Faroes in July, you could tell people... You could also tell them if you come too much.
I mean, I hope I can tell them they come for negv. Wow,
we're very sex positive here. We wish people could talk about those things too. I want everybody to be able to tell people if they've had a lot of good food to eat and if they've got something else on their mind.
I mean, you know, we ask people when we meet them, like, how are you doing? Are you eating well? Maybe we should ask them, like, are you coming a lot? Like, you know, are you coming at healthy levels on a daily basis?
I think people would be very worried if you asked them something like that. As you've seen, as you yourself have witnessed.
Don't announce that at a confirmation family gathering.
That's the worst place.
That's
you had the worst crowd for.
That's probably the worst place.
Yeah, don't do that. Well, I don't have to tell you.
So yeah, that's,
you know that firsthand.
Some linguistic embarrassments.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that was story number 2. Great stories.
Yeah, you know, I don't think they're so bad really, but if you're sensitive to hearing about anything related to body parts or sex, then it might be crass, I guess.
And for the viewer, put in the comment story 2 and then a number 0 to 10. 10 is the most crass thing you ever heard. 0, nothing at all. Give us a number there if anybody's still watching this.
I've had this idea in the past. I was like, how interesting it would be to gather a bunch of like friends, and then everybody just write down stories that are cringe stories, and put them all in a book, like a collection.
Collection of cringe stories.
And my hope would be that other people have equally as many cringe stories as I do, so I don't feel so alone.
Yeah.
But and then maybe we can all kind of collectively accept that part of ourselves a little better. But I don't know, man. I've had a lot of cringe moments, and those are two of them. So yeah.
Are you gonna do? So we're gonna do an open mic later.
Yeah.
Those are great stories. You want to do those stories at the open mic later?
I think those stories really work best in Faroese audience.
I think they would, because you explain them really well. You explain how you learned it and everything, so people are kind of learning with you.
Okay, maybe. I might.
You can think about it.
I did stuff related to like becoming a father last time. I guess I could do.
Those were great stories too.
Those were fun.
Yeah.
Those are fun.
And we can talk more about that later. But I want to bring us into a segment of the show where, so you know how to promote videos like this, you need a little clip of something really interesting or saucy.
Yeah.
So what I've been doing is that in the middle or towards the end of the podcast, I just ask people, so what kind of crazy story could you make up that could, so one... I think, was it the last, the one that comes to my mind now that I remember best is that I had a comedian Mette, one of my Danish friends here, on the podcast, and she said she was pregnant with twins, which she wasn't, but just as an example, I asked her what kind of crazy story could we come up with, and that's what she said, and so we just went into that story as if it was real. So, what kind of story could we come up with? Is there any specific story that you wish we could tell right now and make people believe is true?
I mean, sometimes I think reality is stranger than fiction. Like I've got some crazy fucking stories that people wouldn't believe that were just real.
Okay.
I could make something up, I guess.
Anything that you think we could put into a 30-second video or something that could catch people's
attention?
So
I bought a house when I was in the US.
Okay.
And I learned quickly thereafter that whoever lived there at some point, the house was over 100 years old. It was like 108 years old when I bought it. The house was haunted. And at some point, someone lived in the house that believed and actually acted out some sort of like sorcery rituals. Because I discovered a whole lot of like carved in engravings into the foundation, like weight supporting wood in the basement of the house. And the basement was always just creepy.
What kind of carvings are we talking about?
I didn't even understand them. It wasn't English. It wasn't Latin. It was
lines and like
symbols,
shapes?
Symbols that would just go on for like meters. And I came across it by accident one day, just like cleaning some stuff up, and I was like, what is that? And I was like, it's something you would see like in a sci-fi film, like some alien language or something. I was like, oh, that's weird. That must just be some random mark here. Oh wait, no, it's not. Oh shit. And then I found this other piece of like weight-bearing wood for the house that had like this really weird looking like claw scratch marks that kind of went around part of it. And I was like, that doesn't look like it was made by human hands or like dog hands. And I was like, the fuck was that?
Claw scratch marks.
And I always felt a weird vibe in this house. Always.
Yeah, I would after seeing that.
From before.
Even before that?
Even before that, man.
Was this house a deal? Was it a good deal?
It was a fantastic
deal.
Got such a good price on
Somebody
it.
trying to get rid of this house?
They were eager, I guess, to get rid of this house. I know you believe in ghosts and so after this, did something happen there or? Well, what ended up happening is I randomly one night was at a party with some neighbors at the most hippie house of all the houses in the neighborhood. I think it was actually a cult. I think it was a cult living in this other house down the road. But they were having what looked like a banger of a party. So I showed up one day with a bottle of tequila to say hi and join the party. And this was like out of a movie, because there was like this bedroom, but the doorway didn't have a door. It just had like two mattresses like came together to close it off. And I'm in the bedroom was an extension of the kitchen. And I'm in the kitchen talking to some people, and all of a sudden these two mattresses open up, and this long-haired, Jesus-looking, shirtless dude like comes through with like 2-3 girls behind him. And they enter the kitchen, and he's like, hey, like, what's up, bro? And the girls are like, hi. And like this other, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? It was like a cult, I think. And then one of the guys, I happened to mention to him, and I was like, he mentioned something about being into, he was a Wiccan or like or I don't know. Not a Wiccan, I think only women can be Wiccan. I don't know. He said something about magic. Okay. And I was like, oh, magic, wow, you'd be really interested in some of the carvings I found in my house. And he got so serious. He was like, what carvings? And I was like, you know, it's got like a shot of tequila in my hand. And I was like, oh, there's some carvings in my house. And he's like, can I go see them? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I get a weird vibe from my house. Do you want to see me? He's like, yeah. He runs off. He goes to some room upstairs. He comes back with a sword, a proper sharp-ass sword, some scrolls, and like a red marker, like a red Sharpie or something. Mm-hmm. And one of his flatmates, fellow cult members, went off to grab some incense or something. And there was a posse of people. There was like 6 from this house. And we all walked over together to my house. And we went into the basement. And I showed them the carvings. And this guy was like in shock when he saw them. He was like, oh, I know what this is. And he's like, oh. And he just kept mumbling like this thing to himself. Like he totally ignored everybody else. He was like, oh, the things I could have learned from you. Oh, this is so advanced. And I was just like, what is it? This other person's like lighting incense on the floor. He's unrolling his scroll, unsheaths his sword and does something. And I'm like, what the fuck?
You just want to have a good time.
I have a flatmate sleeping upstairs who has no idea I've invited a cult with weapons into my basement, into our basement.
Yeah, imagine if he came down like
he would have been like, hey, what do you... Never mind, you know, like I'm out.
Is that a sword?
Yeah, it was weird. So what he said he was doing at one point was nullifying the magic that had been carved in. So he was going through and putting markings over the markings to nullify the magic. And then he said some words over some scrolls, said some shit about a dragon. One of them gave me the tiniest bottle I've ever seen, maybe this big. And inside of it was like a tiny piece of what looked like a red rock. Like, I don't know, some millimeters in diameter. And she gave it to me, so serious. She was like, take this. And I was like, what is it? I'm just trying to party, you know what I'm saying? And she was like, it's a dragon tear. It will protect you from the spirits in this house. And I was like, thinking to myself, like, I really don't believe in this shit. I still have that dragon tear today. Like,
really?
I have not let go of that dragon tear. Like,
where do you have it?
In my room somewhere. I think just in my nightstand. Like, I keep it close.
The dragon tear.
I don't believe in it, but I haven't let it go. You know, like, I don't know why. Like, the house did start to feel less weird after this crazy bunch showed up. Also, that cult disappeared from that house like some weeks later. I never saw them again, you know. But yeah, so haunted house, ritual carvings in some unknown language, claw marks, could have been a ghost, probably a ghost. And then like a sword-wielding magician who showed up to nullify the evil magic, and a dragon tear. Wow. How's that for a made-up story? That's not made up, even.
That's a real story.
That's a real story,
That
man.
really happened.
That really happened.
Well,
yeah.
I don't believe you, but...
don't come try to take the dragon tear from me.
You have to show me.
I saw you asking about it. I don't know why.
People in the comments, how much do you believe this story? From 0 to 100%. 100% is if you believe it completely. 0 if you don't.
Is
How
it
much
true?
do you believe the dragon tear story?
Or am I just really good at bullshitting?
Yeah, I'm not sure. But that reminds me about... so you moved from Michigan into the Faroe Islands, and in the Nordic countries, the Faroe Islands are famous for being the more religious part of it.
Oh, yeah.
So what was it like for you to move from Michigan into the Faroes in terms of religion and stuff like that?
I mean, I come from a religious family. My father's a preacher. Just retired from working with the church, and my mom still works with another denomination of the church. And so I grew up as a preacher's kid. There's a whole stereotype of PKs, preacher kids. You know, there's a thing about that.
What's the stereotype?
The stereotype is just like preacher kids party hard because they're lashing out to break free from the oppressive upbringing that they were raised with. So, you know, things will sometimes lash out in unhealthy, exaggerated ways because it's been pent up so long. And, you know me well, you know I really don't party or really go, you know.
I've never seen you party.
So it's clearly not true, yeah. Do you have a twitch?
Yeah, I get a twitch in my eye sometimes.
Okay, cool. So yeah, there's like this whole PK thing. So I grew up in a religious environment. So moving to a very religious place, it wasn't weird. It wasn't weird or anything, you know. But I mean, yeah, I don't really know. It was like the religiosity in the Faroes definitely shows up in certain ways, and I think in general, people are just happier and healthier if we're open and honest with what our true desires are. If we're just honest with what we want and why we want it, and we understand those things, we can connect better and have healthier relationships and empathize with each other better, understand each other better. But there's a lot of traditions, many of which are religious traditions, that kind of judge and box in much of the human experience. And, you know, and then that shapes the way people act, and I think that's a bit unfortunate. It doesn't have to be that way. You know, the Christianity or any religion in particular, that's not necessarily a bad thing on the religion itself, because it doesn't have to be interpreted that way. But that's just how it often is interpreted. And so you got a lot of people that are sexually repressed, and people that isolate or hate part of themselves because it never fit the mold or accepted things. And, you know, you see that in any religious society. And maybe you even see it in non-religious societies. Iceland's not a very religious society. The most secular in all of Europe, I think. And yet, you still see a lot of that here too. So it might have nothing to do with religion, really. It's maybe some interplay between culture and religion, and sometimes one and the same.
I think every culture is conservative about some things and not conservative about some other things. Yeah. And I think that the Faroe Islands and Iceland are conservative about different things. Yeah. So in Iceland, a lot of people think about the Faroe Islands as a particularly conservative place. And in some things, they are particularly conservative. But Iceland is particularly conservative about some things for themselves here. Yeah. So a very obvious example is the language, for example. So they have been very resistant for any changes or any kind of development. That there's a trend. The language tend to want to change a little bit over time. And in Iceland, they've been extremely conservative about the language.
Isn't that also true in the Faroes?
So the Faroese language has changed more over time than the Icelandic language. That's kind of why I'm bringing up this example.
What about post like hardcore Danish rule?
Yeah, so to me, Faroese in terms of language are less conservative than Icelanders. Okay. Just as an example. Okay. And I think every culture, like I said, is super conservative about some things and less conservative about some other things. And you might not be entirely conscious about what kinds of things it is you're being conservative about. Yeah. But one thing that the Faroe Islands have been more conservative about than the other Nordic countries is religion. Yeah. And And did you notice anything? So when you're talking about some how that might affect you in terms of being repressed or something. Did you notice anything like that in the Faroes in comparison to other places?
I mean, I think that sort of like conservatism is at the root of things like Rusan and Vinbuden. Mm-hmm. I think there's a connection there.
Stores.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then that has ripple effects. How do we interact socially? What is socially acceptable? You know, things like that. So I saw it with that. I could see it a bit in like acceptance of science. Mm. So this is one of the things that we were learning about with climate science. And, you know, it's not a hardcore correlation. It's not causation. But there is a sort of general attitude towards science from groups higher in religiosity, where there's the defensiveness somehow, I guess. It's like sometimes it can feel threatening. And you can kind of see how that plays out in climate science. You know, so like, you know, climate science about how it affects the fish population around the ocean in the Faroe Islands. And what have the authorities done to address that? Very little or nothing, you know. And then, I mean, I'm talking specifically of a certain range of a few decades, but I don't know if anything's changed in the last 2 years or 3 years even. I haven't really been following it for some years now, but you can see it. And it's just like, I've had conversations with people in the Faroes, not necessarily religious either, but I think it shapes the attitude, where I was just like, you know, the oceans, like, yeah, like we're losing a ton of biodiversity in the oceans, and like the acidity level is growing, and it's really a problem. And I've literally had an older Faroese person tell me like, what are you talking about? Look at the ocean. Mm-hmm. Look at how big it is.
It's infinite.
It's so big. Like, what makes you think we could do anything to that? It's so big. And I was like, you guys, like, it's not only us fishing it. You know, it's, I mean, I heard recently that there's one specific Russian oligarch who he himself owns more fishing vessels than all of Iceland put together. And it's just like, just to kind of grasp the scale of the activities in the oceans, you know, things like that. But that sort of attitude, and I was saying some scientific stuff, and that the attitude was like, nope, look how big it is. I'm not even going to listen or consider what you're saying. And yeah. And to be fair, this might have nothing to do with religion. I don't think he was a particularly religious person. And I know that's what you asked about. It just happens to be the first thing that comes to mind. But there are a lot of religious people in government, and it shapes the way they handle fishing policy and environmental policy and things like that. And I have no idea if that answers the question that you were asking me.
Just something to think about. I was just wondering if you had any experiences.
What do you see as some of the biggest social differences between Faroes and Iceland, like the social culture?
When I started university here, one thing that stuck out to me is that if you go to a party in Iceland, there will be quite often, at least in my experience, there will be the girls very often will be sitting together, and the guys very often will be sitting together.
That's too bad.
And I noticed that all throughout my school here. That so Iceland is very progressive in terms of gender equality. And equal opportunity and all those kinds of things. But it seems socially that there's still these unwritten rules where when you come into a room, at least what tends to happen is that the women will be talking together and the guys will be talking together. And if I started a new workplace, I kind of feel that people expect that I would try and befriend the guys first.
Okay.
That I should talk to them about football or something.
Okay.
Whereas where I come from, I go in a place and everybody is interesting, equally interesting, at least at first, until some people will be more interesting or not.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of female friends, a lot of close female friends,
You don't have any friends. He doesn't actually have any friends. Right? Okay. You had some friends.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a character I'm doing.
Yeah. Okay. One of those fake stories you're talking about.
And so that stuck out. That stood out kind of to me. Socially, like when you go to a party, if you like, a lot of guys are mostly interested, or when they're meeting somebody, they might want to talk about football, soccer.
Yeah.
And I don't. I have zero interest in that.
Yeah. Same here.
Zero.
Same here. To be honest.
So I'm not very good at that. And so I've been in a lot of scenarios where I've noticed more of a gender segregation socially, and these unwritten rules.
Okay.
Here than what I'm used to. So through my school in the Faroes, through elementary school and high school and stuff like that, it seemed more mixed and not as segregated gender-wise.
Do you think age plays any part in that?
Could definitely be. Yeah. So that's something that's kind of I've noticed, but and it might be my own biases. It might be a confirmation bias on my behalf, or the type of places I've been, or something.
I mean,
I don't know.
In my experience, I think there's some truth in what you're saying, because I can see some of that in my experience. Like I'm saying, like one of the things that stood out to me in the Faroes, which I thought was so cool, and it really speaks to the sense of community in the Faroe Islands, is like when you go out, like if it's a proper party night and the town is going to have a lot of activity, there are people in town of all ages. From, of course, there's always people that are too young to be drinking that are out in town, but there's also people that are like in their 50s and 60s. And they're dressed up and they're there to have a good time and be with their friends also and party. And you can go to places and it's all mixed. And that's normal. And I always thought that was so cool. Like, because where I'm from, which sounds weird, it's very generalizing, but my experience is like there's the older people bar. That's if you're over 40 or something, you better not be seen over at the cool place. You better go be at this place. And then like these people go to that place and these people go to this place. But in the Faroes, and a lot of it has to do with size, I think, just sheer structural limitations. But in the places where you go, there seems to be such a blend. There's some exceptions, like looks. No, actually, not even true. Even looks, you have a big blend. Maybe what used to be under Landskrona, I forgot what that was called.
It's been a bunch of different things.
Yeah, I know.
It's so long that I was living there, I don't really know.
Yeah, but there are some exceptions to this. But in general, there was such a blend of age and sex and style. And I always thought that was so cool because people would always come together, no matter these differences. And they'd all have a good time together. And they wouldn't be shy about talking to each other. You'd have some 20-somethings show up to a bar and they see their uncle's friend who's there at a work party and they're like 40 years old. They'd be like, hey, good to see you. What's up? How you doing? And I thought that was so cool. And I really loved that part of it as well. So I think I can see some of maybe what you're talking about.
And there could be Faroese people here who maybe if I talked to them about this, they wouldn't know what I'm talking about. But
I've only lived here 2 years now, so I really haven't been here long enough to really speak from personal experience on it. You've been here much longer than I have, so yeah. I don't know. When I first moved to the Faroes, I remember thinking just how cold the culture felt. Which there's some bias there because when you're,
that is what Latino people say about the north of Europe. That is kind of the.
And it's so much of this is relative. It's so relative. Like I don't think I'm a loud person in the big picture, but in the Faroes, I'm probably seen as a pretty loud person. Here in Iceland, I'm probably seen as a loud. But if you were to put me in Miami, where I went to middle school and high school, they'd be like, that guy's speaking at the same fucking volume as everybody else. It's normal.
I remember when I went to Italy, I thought everybody was super loud there. Like the loudest people I've ever been around was in Italy.
Yeah.
And I've traveled around, and when I talk to Hispanic or Latino people, they tell me that the north of Europe, isn't everybody kind of cold up there and stuff like that? And from their perspective, it could be.
It is. From our perspective, it is because we're so, we hug, we give kisses on the cheek, we're so much warmer. It takes very little to get like a community of Latinos to start dancing. Like dancing was a part of almost all of our social get-togethers in Miami. You know, it's just hot-blooded is what I've heard Faroese people say in the past. Oh, you guys are so hot-blooded. Like you're so quick to party, but you're also quick to anger. You're like, or passionate, you know, the stereotypical passionate lover, fighter, blah, blah, blah. Whereas Faroese people or Nordic people, in my experience in general, are much more chill until they drink. Then it's a different story. Latino. Then they become a bit more Latino. Yeah. Everyone's like, despacito, after like their fifth beer or something, like no matter where in the Nordic you're from. Like, you know, because I mean, you guys have your own sort of, you know, repression. And I think that's shown in the drinking culture and how different people are when they're drinking. But you know, every culture has its quirks and its characteristics. But yeah, that's.
Is there anything else anything else that stood out to you after moving here to Iceland and being here for these 2 years? Anything you noticed? Any differences or?
Yeah, there's one difference that I was very disappointed about, and that Icelandic people are so much more on time than Faroese people. And in so many years of being in the Faroes, and if Iceland comes up, they're like, oh, Iceland, you know, our culture's almost the same. We're so similar, and cultural cousins, or like they're our big brothers or something like that. That's the sort of talk. And I was like, okay, cool. Faroese people live on island time. Cuba, there's stereotypically island time, late for stuff, things like that. Iceland's a big island. That's probably going to be the same. And I'm not super punctual, you know, with things. So I really enjoyed the relaxed attitude in the Faroes with these things. And then I show up here to Iceland and people are like, this started at 6. Why were you here at 6:10 or something? And I'm just like, it was like 10 fucking minutes, you know. You know, in the Faroes I've been like, nobody would even think, you know, but here it's like, oh yeah. Or if I asked my girl, like if we're going to a function, a family function or a party, and the party starts at 6, I get into the shower at like 5:40. And she's like, what are you doing? Yeah. The party starts at 6. And I was like, yeah, we get there like 6:30, 7, no big deal. And she's like, no. It starts at 6. Like they expect us there. And I was like, whoa. Yeah. This is Germany? This is Denmark? I
can confirm this. Yeah. If you're invited to somebody's house, in the Faroes, somebody throws a party, they say, yeah, you can come at 8. If they know nobody's going to be there at 8. Maybe one person.
Yeah.
That's
an Icelander.
That's when it opens.
The Dane or something.
Somebody who didn't have anything to do that day or something. Yeah. But so they know that people might, and then people just show up when they got time. Yeah.
But not here. No, here it's like.
Yeah, if they.
Birthday party starts at 6. We're singing happy birthday at 6:05, and the cake.
They're counting on people to be there at that specific time.
Yeah. So that's taking some adjusting too, and I was just like, I mean, the Icelandic culture is so much more similar to the US in many ways than Faroese. And, you know, there's a lot that I love about my home country. There's a lot that I don't. And I think you can say that about anywhere in the world. Anywhere that you live in the world, you got your pros and your cons. But I really enjoyed a lot of the differences, socially, culturally, moving to the Faroes. I really enjoyed a lot of them. And moving here to Iceland, it really feels like not only geographically am I closer back to home, but also, you know, government-wise and like culturally. And I'm just like, okay. It's fine, you know. I'm not saying anything bad about Iceland. It's a beautiful place. The culture has so many interesting, fascinating things, wonderful people. There's just some cultural differences, is all I'm saying. You know?
And every place will have some benefits and disadvantages from your own perspective.
Anywhere, yeah.
And when you move to some place, something that you feel is a disadvantage, it might end up being an advantage later.
Yeah,
and
true.
It might change how you feel about things, and it's just the fact of the matter that you're not going to love everything about where you're living.
That's totally true. And it's silly to even think that there exists a place where you would be 100% happy with everything. No. You know, 'cause where there's people, there's problems. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And And we have to deal with our own shit and try to live as peacefully and happily as we can. And I think Iceland is a wonderful place to live. Like there's a reason why there's so many foreigners living here per capita, you know. And there's a reason why I chose, along with my girl, to move here to offer a healthy, happy place for our son to grow up too. Not that it couldn't happen in the U.S., but just that there are some like indisputable advantages to raising a family in Iceland.
What would that be?
Part of it is the difference in crime. There's a big
safer.
It's safer. That just goes.
Safest country in the world for many years in a row.
Yeah, that's been changing. It's been changing, but yeah, it's a very safe place. That's still the same. So that's part of it. The healthcare is you're not going to go bankrupt if you get sick in Iceland. Education, higher education is affordable. The standard of living is just higher. The work-life balance, that should have been the first thing I said, really. Work-life balance, it's better in the Faroes. It's good in the Faroes. It's super good here too, though. And I never really understood what work-life balance was, I think, until I moved out of the US. And then I was like, wait, you get more than like 1 week of vacation a year? You can take all your vacation at one time? What? Like, you can be sick and not have to pay a copay at the doctor's office to have a note from the office proving that you were sick that you have to send to your company? If my son is sick, those are separate sick days? Like, I can leave early from work if there's a kindergarten meeting for my... Like, these are like probably seen as little luxuries here. It makes a big difference, And there's a certain sense of like tranquility and calmness that comes with it, that is palpable, that's like noticeable in the way people live. And I felt it in the Faroes right away when I moved there, and I feel it here too. And it's important. And we can do that anywhere, but some work-life balance, some plain old understanding and respect that life happens sometimes and we need to accommodate that. We're not machines. When I went to visit the Faroe Islands the first time, I had been working as a sales manager for like, I don't know what it was, 7 years already for the same company. I think I had a total of like 2 weeks of vacation a year, even after all these years. And the most vacation I'd ever taken in all this time in a row, I think had been maybe 5 days or 6 days. And so when I decided to visit the Faroes, I wrote to my district manager and I was like, hey, I'm thinking about taking vacation a few months in advance, and I want to take 9 days of vacation in a row. I'm going to be traveling to Europe. It's going to be a lot of travel. It's going to be so fun, exciting. Thank you. Let me know what you think. I would like to get approval, blah, blah, blah. And the response was like, no. No. You're too important to like the sales of your location, and we just can't afford to have you away so many days in a row. So sorry, vacation declined. 9 days I asked for.
Would never happen here.
No, 7 years. Wow. At that point, I'd been working at that company.
Wow, it would never happen.
And I would be doing them favors too.
Even after the first year, that would never happen here.
And when they were like, oh, Luis, we need some help in Chicago. Can you go help train the staff over there? And I was like, cool, let's go do it. Drive to Chicago, work there for like a week or two. Oh, Luis, in Ohio, we really need some help recruiting. So I was like all over, really stepping up to help this company. I asked for 9 days off, and they're like, no. I reply, okay, how about 8 days? No. Wow. And so then I said, okay, 7 days is the minimum I can go with, because it's going to be a day of travel to get there and a day of travel to get back. Yeah. So 7 is the minimum. We need to have a serious conversation about the 7 days or else, basically. And then I was told later by my regional manager, the manager above my manager, that the only reason the district manager approved it was because he had a conversation with the regional manager, and the regional manager said to him, are you willing to lose this employee over this? And he was like, no. And he was like, then you better approve it. If it wasn't for that, he would have said no. to get these 7 days off, I had to go to work, finish my shift, and then immediately drive to Chicago, which was like 3.5 hours, right from work. Start my vacation, arrive back to Chicago, drive directly back to work. That was the only way the 7 days would have made sense. And I was stuck in traffic from Chicago to my hometown. And I got a phone call asking why I was 40 minutes late to work. Imagine that shit in the context of like a Nordic, norms, and that's wild.
That's wild, yeah.
And then to me, I was just like, yeah, I guess this sucks, but this is normal work life. This is what normal life is like.
Yeah.
But no, man, it's a different world out here in that sense. So it's very good to feel that sort of tranquility that comes with that, Not something to be taken for granted, I think, yeah.
And I do take those things for granted because that's all I know. So I get real bitter about a lot of stuff, like the weather being gray on a day like this and being cold and windy and stuff like that. So some days I just feel like I hate living where I'm living.
Yeah.
Not that the Faroes has a better climate or anything, but just in this part of the world, I get real upset about the weather most of the time.
Yeah.
And I take those kinds of things totally for granted.
I mean, if that's all you know,
yeah,
then it makes sense, And if I were to mention work-life balance in a casual conversation to some of my old friends and stuff back home, they would be like, yeah, I got work-life balance. It's fine.
Yeah, I have my work, and then later I have my life, and then I have work again.
Yeah. So it's pretty different. Of course, that's not everybody's experience. Different companies are different, blah, blah, blah. But.
And I think you said that you felt that there was some differences there between Iceland and the Faroes. Is that right, or what did you mean about that?
Yeah. I it's. I've only been here 2 years. And if I were to think back to my opinions on the Faroe Islands after 2 years of living there, that would be very different from my opinions on the Faroe Islands having lived there as long as I did and how I feel now. So I'm not exactly sure how long-lasting or valid even necessarily my opinions are on living here yet. And a lot of that has to do, I think, with the time it takes to start to feel connected.
Yeah, and every workplace is also different. So depending on the work experience that you might have gotten, just coincidentally, they might have been different. So a lot of people, when they move to a new place, some job will be the first job they get.
Yeah.
And you might imagine that this is what's the norm, and there might be something about that job which is out of the norm, but you might have imagined that that's the norm. So it is difficult to get an idea about what's really representative for the country.
That's true. One thing that I think does stand out, and this isn't a judgment. This is simply a sort of like analysis or understanding of migration of people, and that is, if you got a country like Iceland or the Faroe Islands, and you got yourself a capital, the big city for that country, the people all around else in that country, the people that want to pursue certain types of education perhaps, or they want to get into the arts perhaps, or they want to do a lot of creative things, they're more open-minded to different opportunities that might not be available in the smaller living areas. They're probably going to migrate to the bigger city, if not leave the country to an even bigger city. Think of how many Faroese people moved to Copenhagen, for example, or how many people throughout the Faroes moved to Tórshavn, young people, And then what does that do to the villages? Well, now you've just lost a demographic from your community. There's a pretty high percentage of a certain age group, of a certain mindset of people that are now gone. And so that's going to shape the way of life and the energy in the villages. And so, Akureyri is like the capital of the north. It's a beautiful place. It's got a lot of great things going for it, But it is, I think, maybe just to me, but rather evident, rather obvious, the difference in energy between a place like that and Reykjavik. Not just because of the size, but because of like what kind of feels like the energy and the mindset of people. And I think I took that for granted in Tórshavn.
So the difference between Tórshavn and Akureyri is what?
It's Tórshavn feels to me more like if you were to blend Akureyri and Reykjavik.
Oh, okay.
Because it's got a big city feel. It's got a sort of big city energy to it.
It does have more of a bigger city feel than Akureyri.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the activity, just the sheer level of activity and organizations that are active, the arts and music and theater and like all these things. Tórshavn, because it's the capital of the Faroes, it has so much more of that because it's pulling in from all the villages, the people that are active in those things.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it would suck to live in Klaksvík or Runavík or, Mývatn or whatever. It might be fine. I don't know. I never lived there. But I'm sure there's a difference.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not just a size thing. It's a sort of like an energy and a sort of mindset thing. And I think I've been picking up on that a bit now.
Yeah. I've been to Akureyri a couple of times and just so it's clear to our viewer here, we know that they're tiny places.
Yeah.
When we say big city things, we know that it's not.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Not in the big picture,
But in terms of what it feels like to live in these countries here, there's some towns that have more going on.
Yeah.
And Tórshavn does have a lot of stuff going on.
Tórshavn has a lot of stuff going on. It's fun. It's a fun place. Like, there's there's a song quote I remember hearing, I think it's from Jimmy Eat World, 90s, 2000s rock band. If you're bored, then you are boring. If you're bored, then you're boring. And in a place like Tórshavn with so much activity, it's almost a choice to be bored, I think. And this is such a different opinion that if you had talked to Luis 1 to 2 years moving there, I would have been like, oh, there's nothing to do.
Yeah, but it would take you a long time to kind of realize what there is to do there and where to find it and how to know when it's going on.
And maybe it's the same for Akureyri.
Maybe, it could be.
It could be the same for Akureyri. And, I think I'm being clear enough to people when it comes up in conversation. I'm not saying a negative thing necessarily on Akureyri. Life is pretty calm there. It's pretty nice. My son loves it. He's happy. That makes me happy, And I think it's just taking me time to get connected, and which is probably something a lot of foreigners, a lot of immigrants will say. It takes time, and the older you get, the more time it takes, I think.
Yeah.
I was 30 when I moved to the Faroes. I'm 40 now, so it changes things, but
I imagine also a lot of stuff that you came to like to do in Tórshavn is stuff that you along the way realized that you like to do in Tórshavn. So there might be things to do in Akureyri that you don't even know yet that you would like to be doing there.
It's true. That's very true. And I think no matter where you live, that's an exciting thing to consider. Like, there is probably something I'm gonna love and really enjoy just on the horizon. Coming up.
And you just have to stumble upon it or kind of get to know the right people or something. Yeah, and one of my favorite things about living in Reykjavik is that I can go to open mics, do stand-up comedy, and that's not everywhere.
No.
And in some places in the US, if you want to do open mics, you might have to pay to get to do it, or you might have to bring a lot of people with you. There are the open mics that are called bringers, and then you might have to bring 2, 3, 4, or even more people just to be allowed to go on stage.
To be in the crowd.
No, you have to bring people, to be in the crowd.
For business.
So that you can go on stage. So they want to make, if they're going to let you on the mic, then they want to know they're making some money. Whereas here, there are open mics on Tuesday nights and Sunday nights, and then on Wednesdays at 6 also. And I know about this because I go to these places. And if I just moved here, if I just moved to Iceland today, I wouldn't know about these places. And it might take me a long time to stumble upon this and realize.
And even if you did stumble upon them, it might even take more time to start building relationships with the people involved in those activities, which really connects you more, to it all. Yeah, that's very true.
So one thing that keeps me here in Reykjavik is that I can do a lot of things that I enjoy doing, and that's kind of a result also of the things that I have been doing. So
that's a quality of life. A quality of life issue. I had a manager once in this sales company. This is a manager I really respected. And he just seemed like such a wise, calm guy. He was very good with people and what he did, very professional. And I remember one time he had a meeting with me and another manager. And this other manager kept talking about like, oh, okay, the commissions and this, and what about the how can I tap into the next commission level and this and that. And I was talking about like, okay, but can I get some flexibility when I want to go do some other things? Like, I'm training MMA right now, and then there was like a little bit of dispute between me and the other manager, and then our district manager, the guy I'm talking about, his name's Todd. Todd, if you listen to this, miss you, buddy.
Thanks for sticking with us all the way.
You were great, Todd. I still think about you sometimes.
Shout out to Todd.
Todd would have a saying sometimes when we were stressed. He'd be like, "My name's Todd, not God."
Really?
Yeah. But anyway, so he says to me and this manager, he was like,
line.
he says to the manager, he's like, "Hey," he's like, hold on. He's like, "If you haven't noticed yet, you two aren't motivated by the same things." So he said to the manager, like, "You're motivated by money," And he was. He really cared about getting enough money for some new car, or like, for get a house, this extension. He's like, "You're motivated by money. Luis is not." He said, "Luis is motivated by quality of life. That's what he wants. He wants flexibility, and I think that's maybe what you're talking about here. If it wasn't for your involvement with comedy in Reykjavik, you wouldn't have the same quality of life."
No.
And that really adds to it.
Yeah.
And it's so important. It's connectedness. It's feeling meaning. It's finding meaning, in activities and stuff. And I had that in the Faroes. It was hard to leave it. The most happy I think I've probably ever felt, the most connected, was living in the Faroes. Like the 2 to 3 years right before moving was, I think mentally the most healthiest and happiest. So it's difficult to leave those connections and to try and start that over. But it takes time, no matter where you go.
Yeah. And every country has disadvantages and advantages, and like I said, there's things about the climate and stuff that make me upset here sometimes.
Yeah. Which for you, this is like your natural environment, being Faroese. It's like,
the mailman must have been Latino or something, because I wish I was living in a sunny place.
Yeah, the mailman. Okay, I see what you're saying.
But
there was a rainy day in the Faroe. To interrupt for a second, there was a rainy day in Michigan one time with me and my ex, my Faroese girlfriend. We were living together for a period of time there, and there was a really gray, rainy day. And we walk outside, and she had her rain jacket on, and she was just like, "What a wonderful day." And I was like, "It's raining." And I was like, "What are you talking about? It's miserable." She's like, "No, this is great. This reminds me of home." She's like, having this gray and this humidity and this rain.
She liked that.
She loved it. Like, I don't know if she necessarily would love it for an extended period of time, but in that moment, living abroad, having that nostalgic, memory, that connection, felt great to her.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's what I'm teasing you about a little bit. But I know plenty of Faroese people that bitch and moan about the weather. So
yeah, and so as much as I want to move somewhere else and live somewhere else, I also know that there's a lot of hassle. There's a lot of it's real difficult to move, and then you need to make new friends, and you have to find a place to live, and you have to establish yourself in a new place, and there's so much work. Like you're saying,
it's a lot of work,
and you might not necessarily, and it might not be easy. There might be lots of difficult things about it. So, yeah.
I'm curious, why were you so attracted to Iceland versus Denmark, for example? Because Denmark seems to be the default place to go to for most Faroese people that live abroad.
So I realized quite late that I really wanted to that I wanted to study psychology.
Okay.
I was 23, and I'd finished high school way before that. And in high school, when I was in high school, I wasn't motivated to get amazing grades because I didn't have anything in my mind that I need to get into this.
I see.
So in high school, I wasn't really. I didn't have bad grades, but I wasn't trying to have perfect grades.
Yeah, you weren't excelling, like really pushing yourself.
And to get into psychology programs in most countries, you need to have almost perfect grades. And that's the case in Denmark and Norway and Sweden.
Really?
Yeah. To get into the programs there, you need to have so the average is You need to have the highest possible grade as your average.
Well, okay.
Yeah, so you need basically perfect grades. And I
But
didn't
not
have
Iceland, I guess? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like I said, so they allow everybody to come in.
Okay.
And then,
oh, that's right. And then they sieve through, you were saying, like the filter out.
Based on the grades you're getting there, they'll let you stay in or not.
I think that makes way more sense.
I think that's a pretty good program. I think that's a pretty good way to do it.
Just from like an education perspective, like why take into consideration someone's grades from high school, for example, which included so many subjects, and maybe someone really didn't care about so many of those subjects.
Yeah.
But now they're going to focus on the thing they really want. Why would you say, well, you didn't do very good in geometry or history, so you're not going to get to study biology with us? It doesn't make any sense. Like, give them a shot.
Yeah.
And if they don't make it, then cut them.
You didn't get perfect grades in gym class, so you're not going to be a good psychologist.
Yeah, it's a bit silly, now that we're talking about it and think about it.
And every country does that differently, but
yeah, I'm gonna grab a bit of water.
But I think we're gonna just be wrapping it up here.
Yes.
I'm gonna let you get some water to wrap it up. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
It's been fun, man. I know when we get together, we can just talk for hours and stuff, and it's always fun and very engaging to have conversations with you, because we talk about everything.
Yeah, we do. And I really like talking to you too.
It's a lot of fun, man. So thanks for having me, and I'm glad we could make it happen. Next time, Kilk.
Next time I will have the Coke and the milk, and we'll be chugging.
It's gotta be.
And is there any message you wanna leave our viewer with here tonight? Anything you want our viewer to keep in mind, or any words of inspiration, or anything? What you want the person in the world to know who's watching this?
Do I choose something funny or do I choose something serious?
It's the serious comedians.
That's the serious comedians.
Yeah. No jokes.
If you find strange carvings in your house that feels haunted, find the nearest cult and ask them if they would like to see it. They will probably help you. Bring a bottle of tequila, like I did.
Would any cult work? Could you get the Jehovah's Witnesses? Are they a cult?
Oh boy, that's a whole nother can of worms there.
I apologize to any Jehovah's Witnesses out there. I am speaking out of ignorance. I do not know.
Yeah, I mean, you got to find the kind of cult where you have a doorway that is built by two mattresses put together that opens up to reveal a Jesus-like figure and a harem of women behind.
That doesn't sound like the Jehovah's Witnesses.
No, it doesn't. Maybe in the early days, but not.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, and try not to take things so seriously. Life is short, and none of us are going to make it out alive. So have a good time. Hug the people you love. And be nice. Yeah.
Good.
Cheers to that. Mm-hmm. Your glass is empty, but I have water now that I've refilled.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Have an awkward cheers.
Awkward cheers. Thanks, guys.
I have a drop. Does that count?
That counts. Then it's fresh. Now we have to figure out what we're going to do for this comedy night. Like, I have no idea. Is it in an hour?
It's in an hour, apparently.
Yeah, okay.
I haven't had a look, but...
yeah, see, so Davar's experience, he's like, open mic in less than an hour, no big deal. I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
We can talk about that.
We can talk about that?
What do you want to talk about?
I don't know. How much it sucks to use Tinder these days.
Okay.
Oh, I do have you know what? Yeah, I do have a funny story about that. Do you want to say it here?
Yeah, just keep going.
Yeah, okay. So I've got this complaint about Tinder, and it's about the people that use it, really. So it's like when Tinder first came out, as far as I know, from what I heard, it was a hookup app that got a lot of traction during the Olympics or something. The Olympic teams were using it when they were abroad, and people were like, oh yeah, it's a hookup app. Mm. The internet is full of relationship apps. Mm-hmm. Tons. They've been around forever. Since the internet was around, there's been like websites and apps for this. Mm-hmm. So like Plenty of Fish and OkCupid. You want to find a relationship? There are so many avenues for that. Mm-hmm. Tinder was a hook-up app.
Yeah.
But now, if you go on Tinder, there's so many profiles that are like, if you're just interested in hooking up, don't even swipe right. Long-term relationships only. Serious relationship. I'm like, what are you doing on Tinder? Like, could you imagine, like, if there was no BDSM club in your town, and someone opens up a BDSM club, and it's popular. People are showing up with their chains and their whips, and they're ready to fucking party, BDSM style. And then one day, you decide to go, and you show up, and people are in polo shirts and cargo khaki shorts and sandals, sipping, I don't know, beers, and you show up in your leather, and they're like, oh my God, are you here in your leather? They're like, oh, gross. Like, I'm only here for serious conversations. Vanilla only, please. You're like, this is a BDSM club. What are you doing here? Go to the normal clubs. Don't try to make the BDSM club a normal vanilla, plain old, like everyone else club. This is for BDSM, for example, you know, or whatever it is. Yeah. And I kind of feel like that's happened to Tinder, you know? So like, I show up to the taco margarita bar being like, fucking woohoo, I'll take a margarita and tacos. They're like, no, we only do lasagna now and pasta. And I'm like, but it's a taco margarita bar. And it's like, yeah, but take it easy, like gross. Only lasagna. It's like, fuck you. Like, go eat your fucking pasta and your lasagna somewhere else. Yeah. You know? I'm here for fucking tequila shots. Like, and I just find that so frustrating. Like, why would you take it over? Yeah. Why ruin it? Ruin the very purpose that it's for. And then judge other people that show up for hookups.
And there's all these apps like Bumble and Tinder and Smitten, and they're all the same in that way.
They're all the same.
None of them are exclusively hookup.
No. And if there was an exclusively hookup app that would start soon, it would only be a matter of time until people showed up and they'd be like, long-term relationship only. I'm only here for this. And I'm not saying that's bad. If that's what you're looking for, fucking cool. More power to you. Yeah. If that's what you want, it's going to make you happy, please go find someone and make each other happy.
But it would be frustrating for somebody who is just looking for a hookup and wishes there was a place where it would just be those people. Yeah.
That's it. I mean, I just find that so... It just doesn't make sense to me that you would do that. And I've brought this up to a few people and they're like, but, I mean, if people want a long-term relationship, then what's wrong with that? And I'm like, I didn't say anything was wrong with that. I'm saying don't go on a hookup app and look for it. You know what I'm saying? Can you, like, I don't know, there's just so many analogies that come to mind, like...
Any other ones?
I was just going to say...
Analogies are good.
I was just thinking, like, you know, if you go to a strip club, and because you're looking for a calm, you know, introverted partner to stay home and watch, you know, Netflix with, you probably wouldn't go to a strip club. But if enough introverted, I only want to stay home and watch Netflix people were to go to one particular strip club, it would stop being a strip club. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying we need more strip clubs. Yeah. I'm not saying anything good or bad about any of those things. It's fine to be introverted. It's fine to love to stay home. But don't go to a place that's meant for something else and then start judging the people that are there for that thing. I find that to be really frustrating. And yeah.
It reminds me about, a friend of mine, so he says that he downloaded Grindr once, and he says that it's because the Grindr app, you know, it's got, you know, so according to him, at least when he was looking at it, it said Grindr, make friends. Okay. According to him, I don't know anything about this.
Is this friend you? Is this like a friend of mine?
I've never been on Grindr, contrary to the rumors.
I mean, it'd be fine if you were.
Nothing wrong about it.
Nothing wrong with Grindr.
But I'm just saying, a friend of mine, he says he downloaded Grindr because he was scrolling through this app store and it said, Grindr, make friends. He thought,
oh, okay. He didn't know what Grindr was.
No, he didn't know what Grindr was. So he just saw make friends, so he thought it was a friend making app. Yeah. And he did, and he started talking to a guy in there, and they ended up going to meet up, and they realized, you know, he realized, oh, I misunderstood. But they became friends.
And now they're married.
According to him, that's why he was on Grindr. So apparently, I don't know if it's true, but make friends is what Grindr, according to him, was saying.
Was it like make friends, eggplant emoji? No. In the description, like on the app store.
Make friends.
Yeah, eggplant.
Yeah, big wink.
Yeah.
And eggplant. But so maybe, well, I don't know anything about Grindr, but maybe Grindr famously now is the hookup thing for the gay guys.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I've sometimes thought to myself how different the world would be if women had the same sort of like like sexual proclivities as men do. Like, and guys are just on prowl so much more. And then, you know, women historically, culturally, have been the ones putting the brakes on things and being more cautious, and for good reason, for plenty good reason too. The consequences of getting pregnant, also the consequences of violence, and they're so much bigger, and so I get all that stuff too. But if that were not the case, and if like women were just as like thirsty in general as guys, and I don't know enough about human sexuality, maybe that's the case, we would have died of overpopulation a long time ago. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. If going on Tinder for straight or bisexual people was the same as how it is for like gay men to be on Grindr, the population of Reykjavik would be like, I don't know, 10 million. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you know, Chicago would be at 1 billion. You know,
we would already be on Mars.
We'd be on Mars, or we'd be dead. Like, there'd be so many more people, but.
That's not good for the environment.
No, it's not good for the environment.
We should stop.
So we should...
we should be just doing long-term relationships and no hookups. For the environment. Long-term
celibacy for the environment?
Celibacy for the environment.
Are you a Jehovah's Witness now? Or is that what you brought that? I'm not saying only Jehovah's Witnesses are... this is so US. I feel like this is so US of me. I'm just like caveat. Like, I'm not saying this, I'm not saying that. But, you know what I'm saying.
I don't know what you're saying.
No.
What are you saying?
About the caveat thing?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I think I can just imagine the comments section on something.
Oh.
And if I'm like, oh yeah, celibacy for something, I was like, oh, how dare you say that? I don't want to be misunderstood.
I would be thrilled if I had a viewer watch this far.
Who made a comment?
Who made a comment. Like, if anybody's shook or upset about what we said about celibacy or Jehovah's Witnesses, let me know, and we will take that into consideration. We will learn from it.
Yeah.
So we rely on you to point out the error of our ways.
There's a lot of material to draw from for that. So.
We need to do a lot of learning still. So
Please do.
We might need some help from you guys out there.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
And since we did a fake ending earlier, would
this
you like
is
to
the
do
encore that nobody asked for?
would you like to do anything else you want to say to our viewer out there?
No, I
What
can't.
are you doing with your life? Like, why? I'm wondering. Like, can you put in the comment section, why are you watching to the end? Like, what was it? If anybody watched this far, what was it about it? What were you? You weren't washing dishes. It doesn't take this long to wash dishes. No. What were you doing that takes this long? How did you get this far into this video?
They were probably sitting down in a quiet place taking notes at like all the groundbreaking knowledge that we've been saying. Yeah.
I hope not. The University of Louise and David.
Yeah.
Now so this, we don't know what we're talking about.
No, it's just for fun. We're just having a good time, trying our best.
Yeah, but vaccines definitely don't work.
No, I do the vermectin, wasn't it like that?
That's a joke for everybody. I'm just so you know, I'm not anti-vax.
You're the one doing the caveats now too.
Yeah, caveat. I don't want anybody thinking I'm an anti-vaxxer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
have fun, y'all. Have fun.
Is there anything you want to say to our viewer?
Do cool stuff. Meditate. I don't know what to say. I don't know. Get some good sleep.
Yeah, get some good sleep.
Read
this book. This is apparently a very good book. I haven't read it yet.
The prequel is the Kama Sutra, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
The Kama Sutra.
Kama Sutra.
Come as you are. It's a good book. I've heard. I don't know. A colleague was talking about how good it is, so he gave it to me. I'm supposed to read it. I'm going to read it, learn a lot about that. Maybe I'll be able to tell you some things after I read it. But
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Oh, okay. Gabor Mate. Okay, that's one thing to mention. Gabor Mate. Read this book. I'm sure it's cool. That's what Dabor's saying.
Gabor Mate.
Also look up Gabor Mate, a Canadian psychiatrist, I think. He's been doing the rounds on podcasts and stuff. Wrote a few books. Amazing, mind-blowing. He's been on Joe Rogan and some other stuff. He's like 80-something or like late 70s. He looks like, like a movie character, but he's just so fucking smart and wise.
Gabor Mate?
Gabor Mate.
Never heard of him.
Amazing insights into stuff.
Into what? What's he?
Attachment, child rearing, mostly attachment, and ADHD. He has a whole book on ADHD. He has it's all connected. These things, like I've read 3 of his books, and I feel like I need to read them 5 more times just to be able to retain an ounce, not an ounce, some grams.
Some grams.
Some grams
for the European viewers.
For the European viewers.
Yeah, it's about half a bald eagle.
Yeah, roughly. I mean,
yeah, pound?
that's a lot of freedom in half a bald eagle.
Yeah, there is a lot of freedom in half a bald eagle.
Everyone's like, please stop this video now. That's what.
Is there anything you want to leave our viewer with here today?
God damn it, now if you ask me that one more time. Is there anything you want to leave the audience
Thank
with?
you, I was waiting for that.
Is that what you were waiting for? No.
I'm blaming you for not being good at ending the video. Our viewer, I hope you're having a good day. Sometimes people don't have good days. I'm hoping maybe...
That's okay.
That's okay, yeah.
That's okay.
And if you if there's any notes about the video, if they're negative, I don't want to know. If they're good, I would like to know. And I really, honestly, truly, if you're still watching, please let me know why, because I don't know why people are watching this. And if I would know, it would help me make better videos, I think.
Yeah.
So if I had any idea what is appealing about this, I would have an idea about what I want to do more about. And this seemed to have worked well. And I hope the video and the audio is good.
Maybe your stepsister could be on the podcast next time.
Yeah, my stepsister.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's welcome to join the podcast.
It's a funny relationship you have with your stepsister.
It's
you're very close.
We're some people say too close, but I don't think that's true.
We can ask her next time.
Yeah. But is there anything you want to leave the viewer with here today?
Make sure to hug your step-siblings. Tell them you love them, just like Dover does.
Yeah. He's just making jokes now because...
I thought this was the serious podcast.
Yeah, I'm a bit disappointed by the joking. Is there anything serious you want to leave our viewer with here today?
Yes, my urgency to take a piss.
All right.
Thanks so much.
We're going to end on that note. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Cheers. Bye.
Have a good day.
See you.
Is there anything else?
Taking this with me and buying some Coke.
Yeah. Anything else, Luis? Is it? He's done. You just went over and ended the video. Yeah.
I was pretending to zoom in, but I didn't touch it.